Have you ever felt like you're moving through a world where the rules are hidden from you? That some people seem to possess an invisible key to unlock success, peace, and understanding, while others struggle against an unseen current. We live in an age of information overload, a constant barrage of noise, of conflicting advice on how to live, how to succeed, how to find happiness. The digital world screams for our attention with promises of quick fixes and life hacks. Yet a deeper sense of confusion often remains. It can feel like navigating a vast, turbulent ocean without a compass or a map, where ancient wisdom seems locked away in inaccessible texts. Irrelevant to our fast-paced, modern lives, we search for a foundational truth, an operating system for reality itself. But we are often left with fleeting trends and hollow philosophies that fail to satisfy the soul's deep yearning for genuine knowledge. What if there was such a map? What if there was a key? What if the most profound secrets of the universe were not lost to time, but merely veiled, waiting for the right moment and the right ears to be heard once more? There exists a set of ancient principles, a philosophy so powerful it was said to be the foundation for all major religions and esoteric traditions. A body of wisdom kept secret for millennia by the sages and mystics who understood its power. This is the world of Hermeticism, a timeless teaching that offers not just advice, but the very laws of the universe itself. And in our modern world, we have a unique opportunity, not just to read these secrets, but to let them permeate our being through the immersive experience of an audiobook. This ancient wisdom can bypass the critical chatter of the conscious mind and plant itself deep within our subconscious, transforming our perception of reality from the inside out. This is not a lecture. It is an initiation. It is a journey into the mind of the cosmos, an invitation to learn the rules of the game of life, so that you may stop being a pawn of circumstance and start becoming a master of your own reality. The secrets are waiting. The only requirement is that you listen. To begin our journey, we must first travel back in time, not merely by centuries, but by millennia, to an age of myth and mystery that predates the known philosophers of Greece and the revered prophets of Israel. We seek the source, the fountainhead of a stream of wisdom that has flowed silently beneath the surface of history. And at its origin, we find not a simple man, but a name, a title, a legend whispered with reverence in the secret halls of initiation. That name is Hermes Trismegistus. The name itself is a key. Translating from the Greek is Hermes, the thrice-greatest, thrice great, a superlative of such magnitude that it begs the question, who was this being? And why was he considered so foundational, so utterly paramount to the understanding of reality itself? To understand Hermes Trismegistus is to understand a profound act of cultural and spiritual fusion, the merging of two mighty currents of ancient thought. He is a composite figure, born from the intellectual crucible of Hellenistic Egypt, where the conquering culture of Greece met the ancient, enigmatic civilization of the Nile. In this grand synthesis, the Greeks recognized one of their own gods, Hermes, in the majestic Egyptian deity, Thoth. To appreciate the power of this union, we must first look at them individually. Imagine ancient Egypt, a civilization built along the fertile banks of the Nile, a culture obsessed with the stars, with the cycles of life and death, and with the preservation of knowledge. Their god of wisdom was Thoth, often depicted with the head of an ibis, that sacred bird seen meticulously probing the mud for sustenance, just as the scholar probes the depths of knowledge for truth. Thoth was the divine scribe, the celestial archivist. He was the master of writing, of language, and of magic and law. In the great Egyptian myths, it was Thoth who possessed the divine books of wisdom, containing all the secrets of the universe. He was the one who, in the Hall of Two Truths, stood beside the great scales, weighing the heart of the deceased soul against the pure white feather of Ma'at. the principle of truth and cosmic order. His stylus was ever poised, not just to record the deeds of men and gods, but to inscribe the very laws that governed reality itself. Thoth was not a god of mere opinion or cleverness. He was the embodiment of divine, unchangeable, cosmic intellect. He represented the silent, profound, all-encompassing wisdom that exists before words. The deep structure of the universe that is simply known, not debated. He was the ultimate source of knowledge, a direct channel to the mind of the divine. Now, turn your gaze to the shores of Greece, to the world of Mount Olympus. Here we find Hermes, the son of Zeus. He is quick, clever, and eloquent. He is the messenger of the gods, the vital link between the divine realm of Olympus and the mortal world of humanity. If Zeus had a decree, it was Hermes who delivered it, not as a crude parrot, but as a master interpreter, ensuring the message was understood. He was the god of commerce, of travelers, of boundaries and crossroads, a guide who could move fluidly between worlds. Crucially, he was the psychopomp, the guide of souls, the one who led the spirits of the dead from the land of the living to the underworld of Hades. Hermes was the master of communication, of translation, of making the incomprehensible comprehensible, where Thoth represented the silent knowing of divine law. Hermes represented the active expression and interpretation of that law. He was the god who could bridge the gap, who could make the abstract tangible and the divine will humanly accessible. In the melting pot of Alexandria, after the conquests of Alexander the Great, these two mighty figures converged. The Greek scholars and mystics looked at Thoth and saw the deepest attributes of their Hermes. The Egyptians saw in the cleverness of Hermes a dynamic aspect of their own wise Thoth. The result was not a replacement, but a magnificent fusion. Hermes Trismegistus. He inherited the profound, silent, foundational wisdom of Thoth and combined it with the articulate, interpretive, and communicative genius of Hermes. He was not just the scribe of the gods. He was their greatest teacher. He did not just know the secrets of the universe. He could formulate them into principles and laws that could be taught to worthy students. This is the meaning of Thrice-Greatest. He was considered the greatest of all philosophers, the greatest of all priests, and the greatest of all kings. Embodying the mastery of the physical, mental, and spiritual realms, he became known as the Master of Masters, the original sage from whom all esoteric knowledge flowed, the founder of both astrology, the mapping of the cosmos, and alchemy, the art of transformation. With a figure of such immense stature, a question naturally arises: if his teachings were so profound, why are they not common knowledge? Why was his legacy shrouded in secrecy for thousands of years? The answer is multi-layered and reveals the very nature of the wisdom itself. Firstly, the knowledge was considered profoundly dangerous in the hands of the profane or the unprepared. The Hermetic principles are not simple affirmations or positive thinking tips. They are the literal mechanics of reality. To give this knowledge to one who is driven by ego, greed, or a lust for power would be akin to giving a child the codes to a nuclear arsenal. It would lead not to enlightenment, but to monstrous inflation of the self, to madness, and to the catastrophic manipulation of others. The Hermetic axiom: the lips of wisdom are closed, except to the ears of understanding, is a cardinal rule. The teachings were designed to be revealed only to those who had purified their intentions and were ready to use the knowledge for self-mastery, not for the domination of others. Secondly, secrecy was a necessary tool for survival. Throughout history, ages of enlightenment have been followed by ages of dogmatic repression. The burning of the Great Library of Alexandria was a physical manifestation of a recurring historical theme: the violent suppression of knowledge that challenges the established orthodoxy of the time. The Hermetic teachings, being a personal path to gnosis, or direct knowing, were often seen as a threat to religious and political institutions that relied on faith, obedience, and the mediation of a priestly class. To teach openly that man could understand and master the laws of the universe was a radical and often heretical act. Thus, the wisdom was passed down in secret, from master to student, from mouth to ear. As the tradition states, it was hidden in the allegories of alchemy, in the symbols of astrology, and in the cryptic verses of texts that would seem like nonsense to the uninitiated, but would unfold into profound meaning for the prepared student. Secrecy was a veil to protect the sacred flame from the winds of ignorance and the storms of persecution. Finally, the secrecy was itself a filter, a part of the initiation. True wisdom is not something that can be passively received like a lecture. It must be actively sought, earned, and integrated. The very act of seeking the hidden knowledge, of proving one's sincerity and dedication, was the first step on the path. It ensured that the student was not a mere curiosity seeker, but a soul genuinely committed to the great work of self-transformation. The path was made difficult on purpose, because the journey itself was what prepared the student to receive the treasure at its end. In this way, the teachings were self-protecting. Only those with the ears of understanding would be able to hear the subtle call of wisdom, and only they would have the persistence to follow it to its source. The knowledge was never truly lost. It was simply waiting, concealed behind a veil, for those with the courage and clarity of purpose to draw it aside. This veiled sage, this fusion of Egyptian wisdom and Greek expression, stands as the eternal gatekeeper to this profound knowledge. He is the first guide on our journey. Having now met the messenger, a figure of unmatched intellectual and spiritual authority, we must turn our attention to the message itself, to the immortal texts and timeless principles that are his enduring legacy to the world. If the great sage Hermes Trismegistus was the messenger, then we must now turn to the message he carried. A legacy not etched across volumes of perishable papyrus, but distilled into its most potent and incorruptible forms. The wisdom of the Thrice-Greatest was not meant to be a sprawling library of facts, but a concentrated seed of truth, a set of master keys capable of unlocking any door of understanding. This legacy comes to us primarily through two extraordinary documents, one shrouded in the deepest mists of ancient legend, and the other presented with the clarifying light of modern reason. They are the Emerald Tablet and the Kybalion, and together, they form the sacred texts of our exploration. Let us first approach the older and more enigmatic of the two, the Emerald Tablet of Hermes. Its origin story is itself a Hermetic lesson, wrapped in allegory and myth. Legends claim it was discovered in a Coptic cave, long after the time of Christ, clutched in the hands of the preserved corpse of Hermes himself. Other tales say it was unearthed by Alexander the Great, or that it was found by Sarah, the wife of Abraham. Hidden within a dark tomb, the physical object is described not as a scroll, but as a single, rectangular slab of brilliant emerald or green crystal, upon which the bas-relief letters were embossed. The power of this image is immense, a truth so eternal and indestructible that it must be carved into one of the world's most precious stones. The tablet is breathtaking in its brevity. It is not a book, nor even a chapter. It is a statement, a divine proclamation of barely a dozen lines that purports to summarize the entire workings of the cosmos. It is the ultimate distillation of universal law, and at its very heart lies the most famous and profound axiom in all of Western esotericism. That which is below corresponds to that which is above, and that which is above corresponds to that which is below. To accomplish the miracles of the one thing, let us pause here. For this single sentence is the cornerstone of the entire Hermetic edifice. As above, so below. On the surface, it has been popularly misinterpreted as a simple statement of astrology, that the planets above influence our lives below. But its true meaning is infinitely deeper, more subtle, and more powerful. It is the principle of correspondence. It declares that there is a fundamental harmony, a direct analogy, between all planes of existence. The laws that govern the swirling galaxies in the macrocosm are the same laws that govern the electrons spinning around a nucleus in the microcosm. The principles that dictate the rise and fall of empires are the same principles that govern the cycles of our own personal moods and fortunes. The structure of a tree, with its roots buried in the dark earth and its branches reaching for the light of the sun, is a perfect analogy for the human being. With their physical body grounded in the material world and their consciousness aspiring towards the spiritual, this principle turns the universe from a collection of separate, disconnected objects into a single, unified, resonant whole. It is the ultimate key to knowledge, for it means that to understand the whole, you need only to truly understand a part. By studying yourself, your own mind, your own emotions, of your own body, you can come to understand the mind of God, the emotions of the cosmos, and the body of the universe. It is the Rosetta Stone of reality, allowing us to decipher the mysteries of the unseen by studying the patterns of the seen. It is a declaration that you are not merely in the universe. You are the universe, experiencing itself from a particular point of view. If the emerald tablet is the cryptic, ancient, and powerful seed of truth, then the Kybalion is the magnificent tree that has grown from it. Cultivated for the modern mind. Published in 1908, the Kybalion arrived at a time of great spiritual curiosity in the West. It does not claim to be a direct translation of an ancient text, but rather a modern elucidation of the core Hermetic teachings, passed down from master to student for centuries. Its authorship is one of its most fascinating mysteries. The book is attributed only to the three initiates. To this day, their identities have never been officially confirmed, while scholarly research points strongly to a man named William Walker Atkinson, a prolific author of the New Thought movement. The deliberate anonymity is itself a profound lesson. In an age of celebrity gurus and personality cults, the initiates made a conscious choice to erase themselves from the equation. They wanted the student to grapple with the 7 principles of truth, not with the biography or the personality of the authors. They embodied the Hermetic ideal that the message is everything, and the messenger is nothing. It is a powerful act of humility, forcing us to test the teachings on their own merit, to weigh them against our own reason and intuition, rather than accepting them based on the authority of a name. The Kybalion's stated purpose is to place in the hands of the student a master key with which to unlock the many doors of the temple of knowledge. This brings us to another crucial distinction. Hermeticism is a philosophy, not a religion. It has no church, no popes, no dogma that must be accepted on blind faith. It demands no worship of Hermes or any other deity. Instead, it presents a set of universal laws and says to the student, here are the principles that govern reality. Do not believe them blindly. Observe them. Test them in the laboratory of your own life. See if they do not explain the phenomena you witness both within and without yourself. It seeks not to create dependent followers, but to empower independent masters. The metaphor of the master key is perfect. A specific key opens only a specific lock, but a master key, or rather, the knowledge of how all locks work, allows you to open any door. This is what the Kybalion offers, not a set of beliefs, but a framework for understanding that can be applied to science, to religion, to psychology, to your finances, to your relationships, to every facet of your existence. We can think of these 2 texts using the metaphor of a great cosmic treasure map. The emerald tablet is that mysterious, tantalizing X marked on an ancient, weathered chart. It is a single, cryptic symbol, a potent clue that speaks directly to the soul and promises a treasure of unimaginable, worth the understanding of the one thing. It inspires awe and deep contemplation, but it does not provide explicit directions. The Kybalion, Then is the accompanying codex, the legend that explains the symbols on the map. It describes the terrain in detail. It lays out the 7 stages of the journey. It warns of the pitfalls of misunderstanding. And it provides the practical, step-by-step guidance needed to actually undertake the quest and arrive at the treasure. The tablet is the divine promise. The Kabbalion is the philosophical path. One is the destination. The other is the vehicle. With these 2 sacred texts as our guides, the ancient poetic proclamation of unity and the modern lucid manual of principles, we are now properly equipped for the journey ahead. We have the map, and we have the key to understanding it. It is time to take the first step, to approach the first of the 7 great gates of knowledge outlined in the Kabbalion, the principle upon which all the others rest, the foundational, world-altering principle of mentalism. We now stand before the first and most fundamental of the 7 great Hermetic principles, the master key upon which all the others depend. It is the bedrock of the entire philosophy. A statement so profound and so far-reaching in its implications that to truly grasp it is to have the very foundations of your reality shaken, shattered, and rebuilt into something infinitely more vast and powerful. The Kabbalion states this first principle with breathtaking simplicity and boldness. The all is mind. The universe is mental. Contained within these 6 words is a complete reimagining of the cosmos, of God, and of your place within it all. To unpack its meaning, we must approach it with care, for it challenges the most basic assumptions we hold about the world. Primarily the idea that the physical, material universe is the true, foundational reality. Hermeticism declares that this is an illusion. The true reality is something else entirely. First, we must attempt to understand the term the all. The Kabbalion is explicit that this entity, which is the substantial reality underlying all outward manifestations, is in its essence unknowable. It is the source of everything, the absolute, the foundation of all that is, was, and ever will be. Any attempt to name it fully is to limit it. You may call it God, Spirit, the Absolute, or the Tao. And while these names point toward it, the all itself is beyond any name, attribute, or definition that the finite human mind can conceive. A fundamental paradox lies at the heart of this. There is nothing outside of the all for it to be known by. For you to know something, there must be a you, the knower, and a thing, the known. But if the all is truly all, there can be no separate you to observe it. It is infinite, eternal, and absolute. Therefore, any philosophical or religious system that claims to understand the complete nature of God is, from the Hermetic perspective, inherently flawed. We can know that it is, but we cannot know what it is. This is not a statement of failure, but a profound expression of intellectual humility and reverence. With this understanding of the all as the infinite and unknowable source, we face a great philosophical problem that has plagued thinkers for eons, the problem of creation. If the all is infinite and unchanging, how could it create a universe that is finite, diverse, and in a constant state of flux? There are only a few possibilities. Could the all have created the universe from some external material? No, because there is nothing external to the all. Could it have fashioned the universe out of a part of itself, transforming a piece of its own being into stars, planets, and people? No, because to do so would mean that the all changes, that it is diminished or divided, which contradicts its nature as absolute and unchangeable. This is the great paradox that has led to countless theological and philosophical dead ends. Here, the Hermetic teachings offer a solution of breathtaking elegance and power. The Kabbalion explains that the all creates the universe mentally. It creates in the same manner that a human being creates a mental world of thoughts, feelings, and images. Consider this right now. You can close your eyes and imagine a soaring mountain, a tranquille lake, or the face of a loved one. In that moment, you have created something that is very real to your consciousness. Where did it come from? You did not use any external material. You did not have to sacrifice a piece of your body to create it. It exists as a finite creation within your finite mind, and its existence does not fundamentally alter who you are. Now, project this principle outwards to an infinite degree. The Hermetic teaching is that the universe, and everything within it, is a vast, coherent, and persistent mental creation held in the mind of the All. We are living, breathing, thinking characters in a divine story, thoughts in a cosmic mind, figures in a universal dream. This concept can be difficult to grasp, as it seems to render our existence unreal. But this is a misunderstanding. To say the universe is mental is not to say it is an illusion in the sense of being false or meaningless. Your thoughts are real, are they not? They have real effects on your emotions and your actions. The universe is not an illusion, it is a mental reality. A character in a novel written by a master author is perfectly real within the context of that novel. They have relationships. They struggle. They triumph. They live and die according to the laws of their literary world. In the same way, we are perfectly real within this mental universe. The laws of physics, the properties of chemistry, the biological urges of nature, all of these are simply the inherent rules, the consistent grammar of this divine thought. Gravity is not an arbitrary force, it is a persistent and consistent thought in the mind of the All. The universe is mental, but it is not chaotic. It is a cosmos, an ordered and intelligent system, precisely because it is the product of a singular, ordered, and intelligent mind. Once you begin to truly contemplate this principle, the implications start to cascade, transforming your understanding of everything. If the universe is a mental creation, then the ultimate reality is not matter, but mind. What we call matter is simply a manifestation of mind at a very low rate of vibration, just as what we call spirit is mind at a very high rate of vibration. The old adage of mind over matter ceases to be a hopeful slogan and becomes a literal statement about the hierarchy of reality. Mind is the cause, matter is the effect. This leads us to the most empowering implication of all. If we exist within the mind of the All, then we must be, in our deepest essence, of the same nature as the All. We are not separate from it. The scripture that says man was made in the image of God takes on a new, Hermetic meaning. We are made in the mental image of the All. Our minds are microcosmic reflections of the universal mind. We possess the same creative faculty, albeit on a finite and limited scale. We are mental creators. This is the true philosophical and scientific foundation for what modern culture calls the law of attraction, the power of positive thinking, or manifestation. These are not New Age inventions, they are popular, and often simplified, expressions of this single, ancient Hermetic principle. The reason your thoughts can and do affect your reality is because reality itself is thought. You are a center of thinking consciousness operating within a grand field of thinking consciousness. By changing the nature, quality, and focus of your thoughts, you are changing your own personal vibration within the universal mind. And because the universe operates on a principle of resonance, of like, attracting like, the universal mind responds to your mental state by shaping the circumstances and experiences of your life to match it. You are not merely a puppet in this divine dream. You are a co-creator, a junior partner in the act of cosmic creation, endowed with the power to shape your own corner of the dream. This is the ultimate power and the ultimate responsibility. It means you are not a victim of a random, chaotic universe. You are the artist of your life, and your thoughts are the brushstrokes that create your reality on the mental canvas of the All. To summarize, the first Hermetic principle of mentalism establishes that underlying all of existence is a single, infinite, and living mind. The All, to solve the problem of creation. It posits that the universe is a mental creation held within that mind, much like a dream. And this leads to the ultimate conclusion that we, as beings existing within that mind, are ourselves mental creators, with the inherent power to influence our reality through the focused application of our own thought. This principle is the key that unlocks all the others. It is the foundation upon which the entire temple of wisdom is built. Now that we have accepted, for the sake of our journey, that the universe is a vast and intricate mental construct, a new question arises. How are the countless different parts of this mental creation organized? How does a thought on a spiritual plane, the above, relate to its material expression, the below? How do the galaxies and the atoms, the angels and the animals, all communicate and correspond within this single, unified mind? The answer, as was whispered to us from the ancient Emerald Tablet, lies in the next great law we shall explore, the principle of correspondence. Having established the universe as a vast, singular, mental creation of the all, we are faced with a profound question. Is this mental cosmos a chaotic jumble of divine thoughts, an unstructured dreamscape, or is there a divine architecture, a fundamental blueprint that brings order, harmony, and meaning to the whole creation? The second great Hermetic principle provides the answer, and it is perhaps the most famous and widely quoted of all the ancient axioms. It is the principle of correspondence, encapsulated in the timeless declaration from the Emerald Tablet, as above, so below, as below, so above. This principle is a key that unlocks the intricate, interlocking nature of reality. It reveals that the universe is not a collection of disconnected fragments, but a unified, resonant whole, a grand symphony where every instrument, from the largest to the smallest, plays its part in a single, harmonious composition. To truly understand this principle, we must first discard the simplistic, pop culture interpretation that limits it merely to astrology. While the relationship between the movements of the planets, the above, and the currents of life on Earth, the below, is one manifestation of this law, its scope is infinitely more grand and universal. The principle of correspondence declares that there is always a direct analogy, a perfect harmony, between the laws and phenomena of the various planes of existence. The Hermetic philosophers divided reality into three major planes: the great physical plane, which includes all that is material and energetic; the great mental plane, the realm of thought forms, emotions, and intellect; and the great spiritual plane, the sphere of the highest consciousness, of divine beings, and of the unmanifested potential of the all. The principle states that the laws governing one plane have a direct correspondent on all the others. They are not separate realities stacked on top of each other, but interwoven dimensions of a single existence. And what is true on one level has a corresponding truth on every other. Let's unpack the axiom itself. As above, so below means that by studying the great cosmic and spiritual laws, we can understand the seemingly complex and chaotic world of our human and earthly existence. The macrocosm, the great universe, provides the pattern for the microcosm, the individual being. The laws that govern the birth, life, and death of a star have a correspondent in the laws that govern the birth, life, and death of a human being, or even of a single idea. The great archetypes that play out in mythology and religion are powerful forces on the higher mental plane, and they manifest below in the patterns of our own psychology, our societal structures, and the dramas of our personal lives. Even more empowering, however, is the second half of the axiom: as below, so above. This is the great key to human knowledge. It declares that we, existing on this lower plane, can come to understand the seemingly inaccessible higher planes by studying ourselves and the world around us. It gives us a legitimate method for reasoning from the known to the unknown, The mysteries of the spiritual realm can be deciphered by observing the truths of the physical and mental realms. This turns the ancient Delphic command, "Know thyself," into the most profound spiritual instruction imaginable. To truly know yourself, your body, your mind, your consciousness is to unlock a corresponding knowledge of the universe and of God. You don't need to build a celestial telescope to understand the heavens. The entire map is already encoded within you. This principle of self-similarity is everywhere once you learn how to see it. Consider the classic esoteric analogy of the atom and the solar system. For centuries, mystics taught that the structure of an atom, with electrons orbiting a central nucleus, was a mirror of a solar system, with planets orbiting a central sun. While modern physics has shown the mechanics are different, the fundamental pattern, a central core of energy, holding peripheral elements in a dynamic orbital relationship, is a stunning example of a single design principle manifesting at vastly different scales of reality. Look at the structure of a mighty oak tree. The vast, intricate network of its roots, hidden below in the darkness of the earth, is a near-perfect mirror of the vast, intricate network of its branches, reaching above into the light of the sky. The health and expanse of what is below directly dictates the health and expanse of what is above. This is not just a pretty metaphor, it is a perfect illustration of the relationship between your unseen, subconscious mind, the roots, and your visible, conscious life, the branches. Modern science has even given us a name for this phenomenon: fractals. A fractal is a complex, never-ending pattern that is self-similar across different scales. If you zoom into a fractal, you do not find simplicity. You find the same complex pattern repeating itself over and over. Think of the jagged coastline of a continent. If you look at it from space, you see a certain pattern of bays and peninsulas. If you then zoom into a single mile of that coastline, you see a similar pattern of smaller coves and promontories. Zoom in further to a single rock, and you see its jagged edges repeat the pattern yet again. The part contains the image of the whole. A fern leaf is another perfect example. Each individual frond is a miniature replica of the entire leaf. This is the principle of correspondence made mathematically visible. Imagine a master botanist walking into a 1,000-acre forest. She does not need to analyze every single tree, survey every patch of ground, and test every stream to understand the health of the ecosystem. Instead, she walks to a single, representative tree and plucks one leaf from its branch. In that single leaf, she can read the entire story of the forest. By its color and texture, she can tell if there is a deficiency in the soil. By the state of its veins, she understands the flow of water and nutrients. By the presence of certain spots or blemishes, she can identify diseases or pests that affect the entire forest. That one leaf, the below, is a microcosm that contains all the essential information of the forest, the above. In the same way, you are a single leaf on the great tree of the universe. By deeply examining yourself, you can come to understand the whole. This principle is not merely a philosophical curiosity, it is an intensely practical tool for living. Your external world is a mirror of your internal world. The circumstances of your life are a direct correspondence to your state of mind. If your life feels chaotic, filled with conflict and disorder, the principle invites you to look within for the source of that chaos. It is a reflection of a mind at war with itself, of conflicting beliefs and unresolved emotions. If you seek to create peace in your family or your workplace, you must first cultivate a state of unshakable peace within your own heart. To try and change the world without changing yourself is like trying to change your reflection by polishing the mirror. It is a futile effort, because the reflection is not the cause. When you are faced with any problem, financial, relational, physical, this principle gives you a new and powerful point of leverage. Instead of battling the external symptom, you can ask, what is the corresponding state within me? A persistent lack of money may not be an economic problem, but a correspondence to a deep-seated belief in scarcity and unworthiness on the mental plane. A recurring illness may correspond to a sustained state of internal stress, resentment, or fear that is poisoning the body from the mental level. By working on the higher causal plane, by changing your beliefs, healing your emotional wounds, and aligning your mind with principles of abundance, love, and health, you create a new above. And as surely as the sun rises, a new below must manifest to correspond with it. This is the true meaning of spiritual work. It is the art of adjusting the inner world so that the outer world naturally and effortlessly reflects the new reality. The principle of correspondence transforms the universe from a cold, alienating void into an intelligent, communicative, and deeply personal reality. It reassures us that there is an unfailing order and justice to it all. Nothing is random. Nothing is meaningless. Everything is part of a magnificent, self-referential tapestry. We now see a cosmos that is not just a mental creation, but a perfectly harmonious one, where the grandest truths are reflected in the smallest details. But this elegant structure is not a static crystal. It is alive, dynamic, and thrumming with energy. The mental universe and all its corresponding planes are in a state of constant, ceaseless motion. What is the nature of this cosmic dynamism? What is the force that animates this grand design, that gives life to thought and form to spirit? To answer that, we must turn to the third great Hermetic law, the principle of vibration. We have now passed through the first two gates of Hermetic wisdom. The principle of mentalism has shown us that the universe is a grand mental creation, and the principle of correspondence has revealed its perfect, harmonious structure, where every part reflects the whole. But these principles describe a universe that, while ordered, might still be perceived as static. Like a divine blueprint or a cosmic photograph, the third great principle breathes life into this structure, setting it into eternal, dynamic motion. It is the principle that explains change, action, and the very force of life itself. The Kybalion states it plainly: nothing rests, everything moves, everything vibrates. This is a declaration that the universe is not a noun, but a verb. It is a process, a dance, a symphony of perpetual motion. For centuries, the common sense view of the world, backed by materialistic science, was one of solidity and inertia. A rock was a solid, dead object. A table was inert. The universe was made of tiny, hard, billiard ball-like atoms, the fundamental, indestructible building blocks of reality. To the unenlightened eye, rest was a tangible reality and motion was the exception. The Hermetic sages, however, taught the exact opposite. They maintained that this perceived solidity was a profound illusion, a trick of our limited senses, and that, at its core, everything in existence was a whirlwind of energy and movement. They taught that rest was the illusion, and constant, ceaseless vibration was the one true reality. For thousands of years, this was a purely esoteric teaching, a mystical insight. Then, in the 20th century, something remarkable happened. Science, with the advent of quantum physics, finally developed instruments sensitive enough to peer beyond the illusion of solidity. And what it found there was a staggering validation of the ancient Hermetic doctrine. When we examine that supposedly solid rock under the most powerful microscopes, we do not find a solid, inert block. We find atoms, which themselves are revealed to be over 99% empty space. And within that space, we find a vortex of activity, electrons spinning and leaping between energy shells at unimaginable speeds, a nucleus humming with contained power. We find that these particles are not even solid things at all, but rather localized wave packets, probabilities of existence, pure vibratory energy. Modern science, in its relentless quest to find the ultimate stuff of the universe, has found no stuff at all. It has found only energy, motion, and vibration. The universe is not a collection of things, it is a concert of frequencies. This brings us to the core of the principle. If everything is vibration, what accounts for the immense differences between the various forms of matter, mind, and spirit? What is the difference between a block of lead, the light from the sun, a human thought, and the will of an angel? The Hermetic answer is simple and profound. The difference lies only in the rate of vibration. Everything exists on a single, continuous spectrum of vibration, from the lowest and densest to the highest and most ethereal. At the very bottom of this spectrum, we find forms of matter with vibrations so slow and dense that they appear to our senses to be completely solid and motionless. This is the plane of gross matter rocks, metals, physical objects. As we move up the scale, the frequency of vibration increases. Matter becomes less dense, more fluid and active. We move through liquids and gases, and then into the realms of finer energies that our science has catalogued: heat, light, magnetism, electricity. Each is simply a different band of frequency on the same universal spectrum. But the spectrum does not end there. Beyond the frequencies that our scientific instruments can currently measure, we enter the mental plane. Our own thoughts and emotions are vibrations in the mind of the all. A heavy, depressive mood, a state of fear, guilt, or apathy is a very slow, dense, low-frequency mental vibration. It pulls you downward, makes you feel heavy, and contracts your sense of possibility. On the other hand, a flash of insight, a moment of creative genius, a feeling of selfless love or ecstatic joy is a very rapid, light, high-frequency mental vibration. It expands your consciousness, makes you feel light, and opens you to a universe of infinite potential. And at the absolute highest end of this infinite spectrum, we find pure spirit, or the all itself. Its vibration is of such an infinite intensity and rapidity that it paradoxically appears to be at rest. To understand this, imagine a large spinning wheel. When it is at rest, you can clearly see each individual spoke. As it begins to spin slowly, you can still perceive the motion of the spokes. But as it accelerates faster and faster, the individual spokes disappear into a blur. And if it could achieve an almost infinite speed, the wheel would seem to become a single, solid, transparent disc. It would appear perfectly still. So it is with spirit. Its vibration is so powerful and so impossibly fast that to our finite perception, it appears as serene, silent, and motionless. The principle of vibration explains the great paradox that the source of all motion, the all, is itself seemingly motionless. This principle is not an abstract theory. It is at work in every moment of our lives. We are intimately familiar with it through the senses of sound and sight. Sound is nothing but the vibration of air molecules hitting our eardrums. A low bass note is a slow vibration. A high soprano note is a rapid one. Our ears are simply biological instruments designed to decode a certain bandwidth of these vibrations. We know there are sounds below our range of hearing, infrasound, and sounds above it, ultrasound, which dogs and bats can perceive. The vibration exists whether we can hear it or not. The same is true of light. The colors of the rainbow, from red to violet, are simply different frequencies of electromagnetic vibration that our eyes are tuned to perceive. Red light has a lower frequency, and violet light has a higher one. But beyond red lies infrared, and beyond violet lies ultraviolet, X-rays, and gamma rays, entire worlds of vibration that are invisible to us, yet are profoundly real and powerful. Our entire perceived reality is just a narrow sliver of a boundless vibrational cosmos. The most practical application of this principle lies in understanding our own inner states. You have undoubtedly experienced what it feels like to catch a vibe from a person or a place. You can walk into a room where a bitter argument has just occurred and feel the tense, heavy, bad vibes lingering in the air. This is not a metaphor. You are sensing the slow, discordant mental vibrations left behind. Conversely, you can enter a place of worship, a beautiful natural setting, or a home filled with love and laughter, and you can feel the light, expansive, harmonious good vibes. Your own emotional state is your personal vibrational signature. And because you are a mental creator in a mental universe, you have the power to consciously change that signature. This is the art of mental transmutation. The Kabbalion teaches that mental states can be changed through a deliberate act of will. This is accomplished by the principle of induction, the process of focusing your attention away from the undesirable, lower vibration, and concentrating it upon the higher vibration you wish to embody. You cannot will away darkness, you must introduce light. You cannot fight a feeling of fear head-on, you must cultivate the corresponding feeling of courage. You do this by changing your thoughts. You cannot hold a fearful thought and a courageous thought at the same time, by choosing to focus your mind on thoughts of courage, gratitude, love, and joy. You are actively raising your own personal rate of vibration. This is why listening to uplifting music can change your mood. It's why practicing gratitude is so transformative. These are not merely psychological tricks. They are practical exercises in vibrational alchemy. You are deliberately attuning yourself to a higher frequency on the great cosmic scale, the principle of vibration. Then, reveals a universe that is alive, electric, and perpetually in motion. It empowers us by showing that we are not fixed, static beings, but dynamic vibratory systems with the inherent ability to change our state. We are not stuck with the emotions or thoughts we inherit. We are conductors of the cosmic orchestra, with the power to choose which notes we play. This understanding that everything exists on a single spectrum of vibration, from low to high, naturally brings forth a new question. What is the relationship between the two ends of the pole? What is the nature of hot and cold, light and dark, love and hate, courage and fear? Are they truly separate things? Or are they something else entirely? This inquiry into the nature of opposites leads us directly to the threshold of the fourth great Hermetic law, the principle of polarity. If the principle of vibration revealed a universe of constant motion, the fourth great principle, polarity, provides the structure for that motion, defining the tracks upon which all energy runs. It is a principle that challenges the very foundation of our logic, a key that unlocks the world's most stubborn paradoxes. At first glance, it seems to contradict common sense. But upon deeper reflection, it reveals a profound and liberating truth about the nature of reality. The Kabbalion presents its axiom as a series of seemingly contradictory statements. Everything is dual. Everything has its pair of opposites. Like and unlike are the same. Opposites are identical in nature, but different in degree. Extremes meet. All truths are but half-truths. All paradoxes may be reconciled. To understand this principle is to graduate from a black and white world into a cosmos of infinite shades and possibilities. The core teaching of polarity is that what we perceive as absolute opposites are, in fact, merely two extremes of the same thing. They do not differ in their fundamental nature, but only in their degree, their position on a single, continuous scale. Let us begin with the simplest and most tangible example, hot and cold. We think of these as two distinct things, yet they are not. Ask yourself, where on a thermometer does cold end and hot begin? There is no such line. They are simply words we use to describe our relative perception of points on a single scale. The scale of temperature. Hot and cold are illusions of language. A thing is only cold in relation to something that is hotter. The two terms are meaningless without each other. They are two poles of one thing. The same is true for light and dark. Darkness is not a force in itself. It possesses no substance. It is simply the absence of light. The lowest degree of light we call darkness, and the highest degree of light we call blinding light. But they are both points on the single spectrum of illumination. You cannot bottle darkness. but you can always introduce light. This principle extends to every facet of existence. Consider East and West. They seem like absolute opposites. But if you begin traveling east across the globe, and you travel far enough, you will eventually arrive at your starting point from the west. The extremes meet. The same is true for large and small, hard and soft, quiet and loud. Each is a pole of a single continuum. The true power of this principle, however, becomes apparent when we apply it to the mental plane. Let us take two seemingly irreconcilable emotions, love and hate. We see them as mortal enemies, the driving forces of good and evil in our stories. But the Hermeticist sees them as two poles of the same fundamental mental state, passionate attachment, the energy behind an obsessive, all-consuming hatred is identical in intensity to the energy behind an obsessive, all-consuming love. They are both characterized by an intense focus on an object, a desire for proximity either to destroy or to cherish, and a powerful emotional charge. This is why, in moments of extreme emotional turmoil, one state can flip to its opposite with shocking speed. A spurned lover's devotion can turn to bitter hatred overnight, using the very same reservoir of psychic energy, simply reversing its polarity. The same is true for courage and fear. They are not different things. They are two poles of the single axis of risk assessment. Both courage and fear begin with the recognition of danger or a challenge. The mind at the pole of fear vibrates at a low frequency. It is contractive, and its impulse is to retreat, to flee, to hide. The mind at the pole of courage vibrates at a high frequency. It is expansive, and its impulse is to advance, to confront, to overcome. A person devoid of fear in a dangerous situation is not courageous. They are simply foolish or ignorant. True courage is not the absence of fear, it is the mastery of fear. It is the conscious choice to act from the pole of courage despite the pull of the pole of fear. This understanding leads to one of the most powerful philosophical statements in the axiom: all truths are but half-truths. Every statement that can be made is both true and false depending on the point of view. The statement, "It is raining," is a truth if you are standing in London, but a half-truth from the perspective of someone in the Sahara Desert, and an outright falsehood from the perspective of the entire planet. This principle teaches us a profound intellectual humility. It shows that the universe is not a set of simple, binary propositions, but a complex interplay of relative truths. The ability to hold two seemingly contradictory ideas in the mind at the same time is the hallmark of a master thinker. Quantum physics struggles with the paradox that light behaves as both a particle and a wave. The Hermeticist would simply say that particle and wave are two poles of a single, higher truth about the nature of light that we cannot yet fully perceive. All paradoxes can, and must, and be reconciled by rising to a higher level of perspective. To illustrate this, imagine a wide, flowing river. A person standing on the east bank points across the water and says, "That is the west bank." A person on the west bank does the same, pointing to the east. From their own relative viewpoints, they are both correct. East and west are opposites. Yet, from a higher perspective, from a satellite orbiting the Earth, we see that there are no absolute east or west banks. There is only one, single, unified river system. The banks are defined by the river that flows between them. They are two poles of one reality, inseparable and codependent. Polarity teaches us to seek the river, the higher, unifying principle that reconciles the banks of opposition. This principle is not just a tool for philosophical contemplation. It is the master key to the art of mental alchemy. This is the practical, transformative power of Hermeticism. The art of polarization is the ability to consciously change your own mental states. If fear and courage are two poles of the same thing, then it is possible to slide your consciousness along the scale from one to the other. You cannot change fear into a table, because they are different in kind, but you can change fear into courage, because they are the same in kind. differing only in degree. This is not achieved by fighting the negative state. To fight fear is to give it your energy and attention, which only strengthens it. Instead, the Hermetic technique is one of repolarization. You acknowledge the feeling of fear, recognizing it simply as the negative pole of a mental continuum. Then, you deliberately withdraw your attention from it and place it upon the opposite, positive pole. You use your will to focus your mind on the idea of courage. You call to mind images of courageous acts. You change your physical posture to one of confidence. You repeat affirmations of your own strength. You refuse to give the fear any more mental energy. And instead, you actively cultivate the vibration of its opposite. You are, in effect, mentally sliding up the thermometer from cold to hot. This is the great secret of mental mastery, the ability to consciously change your own polarity. This leads us to the most challenging and misunderstood application of this principle, the poles of good and evil. From the absolute perspective of the all, which is the source of everything, there can be no such thing as absolute evil. But from our relative human perspective, we clearly experience actions and intentions that we label as good or evil. The Hermetic teaching is that good and evil are the two poles of the great axis of life and ethics. Evil is not a separate entity or an opposing force to good. It is simply the negative pole. It represents a movement toward disintegration, disharmony, selfishness, and a turning away from the divine will. Good represents the positive pole, a movement toward harmony, integration, selflessness, and an alignment with the divine will. The goal of the sage is not to deny the reality of evil from our human perspective, but to understand its nature as the negative pole, and to use the art of polarization to consciously live at the positive pole of goodness, thereby starving the negative pole of energy and attention. The principle of polarity, then, shatters our simplistic, dualistic view of the world. It reveals a universe of gradients, spectrums, and relative truths. Most importantly, it hands us the key to our own inner kingdom, showing that we are not the helpless victims of our moods and emotions. We are alchemists, endowed with the divine power to transmute the lead of fear into the gold of courage, the darkness of ignorance into the light of wisdom, and the coldness of hate into the warmth of love. But as we begin to practice this art, a new question arises. Why, after successfully polarizing ourselves to a state of joy, do we so often find ourselves swinging back toward sadness? Why is it so difficult to remain at the positive pole? This constant, teed-like motion, this swing of the pendulum between the poles we have just defined, is governed by its own immutable law. This is the domain of the fifth great Hermetic law, the principle of rhythm. We have now navigated the principles that define the universe as a singular mind, structured by correspondence, animated by vibration, and expressed through the eternal dance of polarity. We understand the nature of the opposing poles, hot and cold, light and dark, courage and fear. But knowledge of the poles alone is incomplete. We must now examine the inescapable movement between them. This is the domain of the fifth great Hermetic principle, the law of rhythm. This principle reveals the universal, tide-like nature of all things, a constant ebb and flow that governs everything from the orbits of galaxies to the beating of our own hearts. Its axiom is a piece of cosmic poetry. Everything flows, out and in. Everything has its tides. All things rise and fall. The pendulum swing manifests in everything. The measure of the swing to the right is the measure of the swing to the left. Rhythm compensates. To grasp this law is to understand the pulse of the universe. Look to the world around you, and you will see its signature everywhere. The great ocean breathes, its tides flowing into the shore and ebbing back out with unerring regularity. The seasons march in their timeless procession. The outflow of life in spring leads to the high point of summer, which is followed by the inflow of decay in autumn and the low point of winter's rest. Before the cycle begins anew, day follows night. Wakefulness follows sleep. The very history of our world is a story of rhythm. Civilizations rise to glorious heights, only to crumble and fall, making way for new empires to emerge from their ashes. Economic markets experience periods of incredible boom and expansion, which are always, without exception, followed by a compensatory period of bust and contraction. The pendulum of political power swings from eras of liberal progress to eras of conservative consolidation and back again. Nothing remains in a static state of supremacy. The law of rhythm ensures that for every action, there is a reaction. For every advance, a retreat. For every rise, a fall. This universal law, however, is most intimately felt not in the stars or in the history books, but in the microcosm of our own bodies and minds. Your very life is sustained by rhythm. With every moment, you breathe in and you breathe out. Your heart beats in a constant rhythm of contraction and expansion. And most importantly, for our work of mental alchemy, this law governs your mental states, your moods, and your emotions with absolute precision. Every feeling you have is subject to the pendulum swing. After a period of intense happiness, elation, or success, there will inevitably be a corresponding swing back in the other direction. The higher the emotional high, the more momentum the pendulum has for its return journey toward the emotional low. This single insight is profoundly liberating. It explains so much of the human condition that we otherwise attribute to personal failure. It explains the strange melancholy that can descend after a great personal triumph, the feeling of emptiness after achieving a long-sought goal. It explains the creative block that follows a period of intense inspiration. It explains the exhaustion and apathy that can follow a weekend of fun and excitement. The average person is completely unaware of this law. They are like a cork tossed on the waves of their own emotions. When the pendulum swings them to the positive pole of happiness, they identify with it completely, thinking, "I am happy, and this will last forever." Then, when the inevitable swing back toward the negative pole of sadness begins, they are terrified. They resist it, fight it, and in their despair, they identify with the new state, thinking, "I am sad, and this misery will never end." They are thrown about by their inner weather, never understanding that they are simply subject to a natural, impersonal law. By learning this principle, you can remove the terrible weight of self-blame. When a low mood comes, you can learn to recognize it not as a personal flaw, but as the natural ebb tide of the mind. You are not broken, you are simply experiencing rhythm. If the swing is inevitable, what then is the path of the master? The goal is not to try and stop the pendulum. This is impossible. To attempt to eliminate all negative moods and live in a state of perpetual, unceasing elation would be like trying to command the ocean to stop its tides. It is a sign of profound ignorance and leads only to frustration and failure. The art of mastery lies not in stopping the rhythm, but in learning to use it. Imagine two people at a beach with powerful waves crashing on the shore. The first person, the novice, wades into the surf and stands rigidly. They are knocked over by the first wave, tumbled about, and come up sputtering, disoriented, and fearful. They fight the water, trying to impose their will upon it, and they are quickly exhausted and defeated. The second person is a master surfer. They do not fight the wave, they respect it. They observe its approach, understand its power, and with perfect timing and balance, they get on their board and ride the crest of the wave. They use the immense energy of the wave, which would have crushed the novice, to propel themselves forward with exhilarating speed and grace. The surfer uses the law, instead of being used by it. This is precisely how the Hermetic sage deals with their own mental rhythms. When they feel the pendulum of their mood beginning its backward swing toward a state of sadness or apathy, they do not panic or resist. They recognize the swing for what it is. They say to themselves, "The tide is going out. The pendulum is swinging." They remain balanced, poised, and do not allow themselves to be swept away into the extreme of despair. They know that this state is temporary and that the swing will eventually reach its limit and begin its journey back toward the positive pole. They use the low period as a time for rest, introspection, and consolidation, knowing that it is gathering the energy for the next upward swing. They ride the wave. Beyond this art of mental surfing, the Kybalion teaches a more advanced technique for those seeking a higher degree of mastery, the law of neutralization. The Hermeticist learns how to escape the conscious effects of the pendulum swing. This is not achieved by destroying the law, but by rising above it. Think of a large grandfather clock. The heavy pendulum swings ceaselessly back and forth at the bottom, marking time. But if you look at the top of the clock, the point from which the pendulum is suspended is perfectly motionless. The master learns to raise their consciousness from the swinging pendulum of their personality, the me, to the unmoving point of suspension, the true self, the I. This is achieved through the cultivation of a higher awareness, the practice of disidentifying from one's own mental states. It is the ability to say, and to know in the core of your being, I am not my sadness. I am not my happiness. I am not my thoughts. I am the silent, unchanging awareness that observes the thoughts and feelings as they rise and fall. By consistently practicing this, you create a sanctuary of stillness within yourself. You polarize your consciousness at the level of the I, the ever-present witness. From this elevated vantage point, you can watch the pendulum of your moods, your fortunes, and your emotions swing below you without being pulled into its motion. The swing still happens on the lower plane, but you are no longer its victim. You have built your conscious home on higher ground, above the reach of the emotional tides. This is the attainment of true mental poise, equanimity, and the peace that passes all understanding. The principle of rhythm, then, reveals a universe of balanced, cyclical compensation. It teaches us to respect the cycles of our lives, to honor the periods of rest as much as the periods of action, and to find stability, not by fighting the currents, but by rising to a higher level of consciousness. We now have a picture of a mental universe, ordered by correspondence, alive with vibration, structured by polarity, and moving in a constant, rhythmic dance. But this intricate, clockwork cosmos begs a final, crucial question. What sets the clock in motion? What is the initial push that starts the pendulum swinging? Every flow, every tide, every action must have a source, a preceding impulse that brought it into being. This undeniable truth of reality leads us into the cold, clear, and inescapable light of the sixth great Hermetic principle, the principle of cause and effect. We have journeyed through the dynamic principles of the Hermetic cosmos, witnessing the dance of polarity and the universal pulse of rhythm. We have seen how the pendulum of life swings back and forth, governed by its own immutable laws. But this rhythmic swing is not a random occurrence. It is not an accident. Every swing to the left is a necessary consequence of a preceding swing to the right. Every ebb of the tide is the lawful result of its previous flow. This recognition brings us to the sixth great Hermetic principle, a law so absolute, so unyielding, and so all-pervading that it forms the very bedrock of universal order and justice. This is the principle of cause and effect. Its axiom leaves no room for doubt or exception. Every cause has its effect. Every effect has its cause. Everything happens according to law. Chance is but a name for a law not recognized. There are many planes of causation, but nothing escapes the law. This principle single-handedly dismantles the entire concept of luck, chance, or accident. In the Hermetic universe, there are no such things. They are merely words born of human ignorance. Labels we apply to events when the chain of causation is either too complex for us to trace or hidden from our immediate view. Imagine a person rolling a pair of dice and getting a favorable result. They exclaim, "I'm lucky." The Hermeticist sees not luck, but a perfect and predictable chain of cause and effect. The effect, the specific numbers on the dice, was caused by a long series of preceding causes, the exact amount of force applied in the throw, the angle of release, the air resistance in the room, the minute friction of the table's surface, the precise weight distribution within the dice themselves. If one could know and calculate all these preceding causes, the result would not be a matter of chance, but a mathematical certainty. So it is with all things. The person who has a chance encounter with a future spouse was not lucky. They were the effect of 1,000 previous causes: the choice to take a certain job, to live in a certain city, to attend a certain class, to walk down a certain street at a certain time. The chain of causation may be incredibly intricate, stretching back for years or even lifetimes, but it is always present, always unbroken. Understanding this principle forces us to confront a fundamental choice in how we live our lives. The Kybalion teaches that humanity can be divided into two broad categories: the great majority, who live as effects, and the small minority, who have learned to become causes. The masses of people are like pawns on a cosmic chessboard, or leaves blown about by the wind. They are largely passive recipients of effects. Their moods are caused by the weather or the morning news. Their desires are caused by the clever marketing of corporations. Their financial status is an effect of the economic climate or the decisions of their employer. They feel like victims of circumstance because they live their lives on the plane of effect, constantly being moved and manipulated by the wills, désirs, and rhythms of forces external to them. They are subject to the genetics of their ancestors, the beliefs of their culture, and the whims of those with stronger wills. They are the effects, and they do not understand the causes that are shaping their existence. The goal of the Hermetic student, the path of the master, is to rise above this plane of victimhood and learn to become a cause. This does not mean gaining the power to control every single event in the universe. It means consciously and deliberately mastering one's own mental states and modes of being, thereby becoming the initiator of the causes that will produce desired effects in one's own life. They cease to be the pawn and become the player. They understand that every thought they think, every emotion they entertain, every choice they make is a cause that will ripple outwards and create a corresponding effect. Instead of being a thermometer that merely reflects the temperature of the room, they learn to become the thermostat that sets the temperature. They become a conscious originator, a fountainhead of causality, rather than a mere receptacle for the causes set in motion by others. To illustrate this, consider the parable of two farmers. The first farmer lives as an effect. He looks at his meager field and complains. He blames the weather for being too hot or too cold, the rain for being too scarce or too plentiful. He blames the pests for eating his crops, the government for low grain prices, and his ancestors for leaving him such poor land. His life is a series of complaints about the effects he is experiencing, and his harvest is consistently poor. The second farmer has learned to live as a cause. He knows that the law is absolute. He studies the soil to understand its nature. He chooses the best possible seeds for his specific climate, setting a powerful cause in motion. He digs irrigation channels in preparation for a potential drought, neutralizing a possible negative cause with a positive one. He builds strong fences to protect his crops. He does not waste his precious energy complaining about the weather, which he cannot control. Instead, he focuses all his will and intelligence on the causes that he can control. He knows, with the certainty of one who understands the law, that if he meticulously initiates the right causes, a bountiful harvest is not a matter of luck or chance, but an inevitable effect. He has made himself a master of his own small domain by aligning his actions with the great law. This principle becomes even more powerful when we understand its application across the different planes of existence. The Kybalion explains that there are many planes of causation, and the Hermeticists have always taught the fundamental rule that the higher planes govern the lower planes. An event on the physical plane is often merely the final effect of a cause that was initiated on the mental plane. For example, the physical act of building a house is an effect. The cause was the detailed blueprint, the architectural plan, which existed first on the mental plane, and the cause of that blueprint was the initial desire or intention for shelter, which existed on an even higher level of mind. The physical world is the world of effects. The mental world is the world of causes. This is why the entire Hermetic art is focused on mental alchemy. To try and change your life by manipulating only physical things is to be like the first farmer, constantly battling effects. It is a slow, laborious, and often futile process. The true point of leverage, the place where real power lies, is on the mental plane. By becoming a master of your own mind, you become a master of causes. Through focused intention, visualization, and the cultivation of a specific mental state, you are planting potent seeds in the fertile ground of the universal mind. You are creating causes on the highest plane available to you, and because the higher governs the lower, these mental causes will, according to the inviolable law, eventually percolate down through the planes and manifest as tangible effects in your physical reality. You build your life from the inside out. The principle of cause and effect is therefore the law of cosmic accountability. It strips away every excuse, every claim of victimhood, every appeal to luck. It places the responsibility for your life squarely in your own hands. Your life today is the sum total effect of all the causes you have set in motion, whether consciously or unconsciously, up to this very moment. This is not meant to be a harsh judgment, but a profoundly liberating truth. For if your past causes have created your present effect, then your present causes have the absolute power to create your future effect. You are not bound by your past. At any moment, you can choose to rise up, to stop being a pawn of circumstance, and to begin the noble work of becoming a conscious cause. We have now explored the intricate clockwork of the cosmos. We see a mental universe, ordered by correspondence, alive with vibration, structured by polarity, moving in a constant rhythm, and governed by an unbreakable law of causality. We understand the how of its operation. But one final, profound question remains. What is the engine that drives this magnificent process? What is the dynamic, creative force that utilizes these laws to bring new things into being? From a new galaxy in the heavens to a new idea in your mind. The answer to the ultimate mystery of creation itself lies within the seventh and final Hermetic law, the principle of gender. We have now arrived at the seventh and final gate of Hermetic wisdom, the principle that consummates all the others. We have explored the laws that govern the operation of the universe, but we have not yet fully addressed the mystery of its creative power. What is the engine that drives existence? What is the dynamic force that brings new things into being? From the birth of a star to the conception of an idea, the answer lies in the principle of gender. The axiom states gender is in everything. Everything has its masculine and feminine principles. Gender manifests on all planes. It is crucial to state at the outset that this principle has nothing to do with physical sex or the social constructs of gender as we understand them today. The Hermetic use of the term is far broader, more abstract, and more profound. It refers to two universal, co-equal energies that are the essential prerequisites for all creation. To understand this principle, we must first define its two great poles. The first is the masculine principle. This is the energy of projection, of giving, of initiating. It is the active, positive, and expressive force. Think of it as the divine will, the focused intention that pushes outward into the void. It is the I am, the declarative statement of being. In our own psychology, the masculine principle corresponds to our conscious mind, our focused will, our logical and analytical faculties. It is the part of us that sets goals, makes plans, and directs our energy toward a specific outcome. It is the sower who takes the seed and casts it forth. It is the positive pole of the battery, holding the charge and the potential to initiate a current without its counterpart. However, The masculine principle is sterile. It is pure, unexpressed force. A seed cast upon barren rock. A will with nothing to act upon. A thought that never finds a home. Its eternal counterpart is the feminine principle. This is the energy of reception, of incubation, of nurturing. It is the generative, negative, and formative force. It is the divine womb. The fertile field that receives the creative impulse and patiently develops it into a manifested form. It is the I become. The process of bringing potential into reality. In our psychology, the feminine principle corresponds to our subconscious and unconscious minds, our imagination, our emotions, and our intuitive nature. It is the vast, fertile ground of our being. It takes the goal or idea impressed upon it by the conscious will and begins the mysterious, silent work of gathering the necessary resources, shaping the energy, and preparing the conditions for its birth into the physical world. It is the fertile soil that receives the seed and, through its own innate processes, nurtures it into a mighty tree. It is the negative pole of the battery, which draws the current toward it, allowing creation to occur, but alone. The feminine principle is simply latent potential. It is a fertile field lying fallow, a womb that has not received the seed of life. The great secret of this principle is that creation never occurs from one pole alone. All creation, on every plane, is the result of the dynamic interplay, the sacred union, of both the masculine and feminine principles. One cannot exist meaningfully without the other. They are two sides of the same cosmic coin. The masculine must project for the feminine to receive. The feminine must receive for the masculine's projection to have any purpose. This cosmic dance is the engine of all generation. Consider the creation of a universe. The masculine aspect of the all's mind projects the creative idea, the divine will to manifest. This logos, or word, is then received by the feminine aspect of the mind, which begins the vast, slow, evolutionary process of unfolding that idea into galaxies, stars, planets, and life. Consider the creation of a work of art. The artist's masculine will decides upon the subject and the composition. They form a clear intention, but the creative flow, the imaginative flair, the emotional depth, that all comes from the feminine aspect of their mind. The subconscious and intuitive wellspring. The will directs, but the imagination creates. A perfect modern analogy for this principle is electricity. Imagine you have a battery and a light bulb. The battery has a positive terminal, representing the masculine principle, and a negative terminal, representing the feminine principle. If you connect a wire from only the positive terminal to the light bulb, what happens? Nothing. The masculine pole has potential, but its energy has nowhere to go. It cannot create light by itself. If you connect a wire from only the negative terminal, what happens? Again, nothing. The feminine pole has a vast capacity to receive, but there is no energy flowing into it. The light bulb, the manifestation, the creation remains dark. Light is only created when you complete the circuit, when you allow the energy to flow from the masculine pole to the feminine pole. A current is generated, and the bulb bursts into light. That active flow between the two poles is the creative act itself. The most vital application of this principle is internal. Within the soul of each individual, it is crucial to understand that every person, regardless of their physical body, contains both the masculine and the feminine principles. We are all whole beings, containing the sower and the soil within us. The great work of self-development is to bring these two inner energies into a state of conscious balance and harmonious union. An individual who is imbalanced, who operates almost exclusively from their masculine principle, becomes all will, logic, and force. They may be highly effective at executing plans and achieving goals, but they are often emotionally rigid, lacking in empathy, and cut off from the well springs of intuition and creativity. They are constantly trying to force outcomes, to impose their will on the world. And they meet with immense resistance. They are all seed and no soil. Conversely, an individual who is dominated by their feminine principle becomes all feeling, imagination, and receptivity. They may be wonderfully creative, deeply empathetic, and filled with brilliant dreams and ideas. But they lack the focused will and discipline to bring those dreams into reality. Their life becomes a series of unrealized potentials, of great plans that are never acted upon. They are all fertile soil, but with no seeds being planted. Their creative womb remains empty because they have not developed the masculine will to impress their desires upon it. True mastery, true creative effectiveness, is found in the inner marriage of these two principles. It is the development of a strong, clear, focused masculine will that can consciously choose a goal or an ideal, and it is the simultaneous cultivation of a receptive, trusting, and fertile feminine subconscious that can take that idea without question, nurture it with feeling and faith, and work tirelessly in the background to bring it into manifestation. This is the union of logic and intuition, of action and being, of doing and allowing. It is the ability to formulate a plan with your conscious mind, and then release it to the infinite creative power of your subconscious mind, trusting that it will do its work. The principle of gender, therefore, is the law of creation. It reveals that the cosmos is not a static reality, but a perpetual process of generation, born from the sacred interplay of two fundamental energies. It teaches us that to become effective creators in our own lives, we must honor and cultivate both the will to direct and the wisdom to receive. We must become both the loving sower and the trusting earth. With this seventh principle, our survey of the 7 Hermetic laws is complete. We began with the foundation that the all is mind. We saw its structure in correspondence. We felt its life in vibration. We understood its contrasts in polarity. We witnessed its cycles in rhythm. We respected its order in cause and effect. And now we behold its creative power in gender. We have been given the complete theoretical framework, the divine schematics of reality. We have the map. The next question is the most important one of all. Now that we know the laws, how do we use them? How do we take this profound philosophical knowledge and turn it into a practical, transformative art that can change the very substance of our lives? This question leads us from the realm of theory into the workshop of the soul. It leads us to the great work itself, the practice known as mental alchemy. For many days and nights on our journey, we have walked the high paths of theory, exploring the 7 sublime principles that govern the cosmos. We have been given the keys to the kingdom. We understand that the universe is mind, that its planes correspond, that it lives and breathes with vibration, that it is structured by polarity, moves in a tide-like rhythm, is governed by unerring causality, and creates through gender. But knowledge, in itself, is like a map held by a person who refuses to take a single step. It is inert. The purpose of Hermetic philosophy is not merely to know the laws, but to become an artist who wields them. We now move from the what to the how. We move from philosophy to practice. We enter the alchemist's workshop of the mind to learn the sacred and practical art of mental alchemy. When people hear the word alchemy, they typically picture a medieval mystic hunched over a furnace, obsessively trying to turn base metals like lead into precious gold. This popular image represents the out, or exoteric, form of alchemy, but the true sages, the esoteric alchemists, understood that this physical process was merely a symbol, an allegory for a far grander and more important process, the alchemy of the self. For these masters, the true laboratory was the human mind. The base metals were not lead and copper, they were the coarse, heavy, and toxic elements of the unrefined human psyche: fear, ignorance, greed, envy, sadness, and hatred. And the noble metal, The coveted gold was not a material substance to be held in one's hand. It was the attainment of a perfected and radiant consciousness. It was the transmutation of those base elements into their highest corresponding vibrations, ignorance into wisdom, fear into courage, greed into generosity, sadness into joy, and hatred into universal love. This is the great work, not to get rich in the world, but to become rich in spirit, not to change metal, but to change man. This art of mental transmutation is made possible by the 7 principles we have studied. Each one is a vital tool in the alchemist's kit. Let us see how they work in concert. The first principle, mentalism, is the very foundation of the entire art. It is the workshop itself. It establishes that because the universe is mental, transmutation is not only possible, it is the fundamental nature of reality. If the universe were purely material, changing a state of fear into a state of courage would be impossible. But because it is mental, we are working with thought forms and vibrations, which are by their very nature fluid and transmutable. Mentalism gives us permission to begin the work. The second principle, correspondence, is the alchemist's sacred manual, as above, so below means that the work we do on the inner planes of our mind will have a direct, corresponding effect on the outer planes of our health, our relationships, and our circumstances. By changing our mental state, we are necessarily changing our reality. It provides the understanding and the faith that our inner work is never in vain. The third principle, vibration, identifies the substance we are working with. Everything is vibration. The base metal of fear is simply a low, slow, contractive frequency. The noble metal of courage is a high, rapid, expansive frequency. The alchemist's job, then, is not to destroy one substance and create another, but simply to do one thing to raise the vibration. The fourth principle, polarity, is the primary tool for accomplishing this. It teaches that fear and courage are not different things, but 2 poles of the same thing. This is the secret of transmutation. The alchemist does not fight the negative pole. Instead, they apply the art of polarization, deliberately focusing their consciousness on the positive pole. They turn their attention away from fear and concentrate it wholly on courage. They mentally slide up the scale, raising the vibration from the negative to the positive. The fifth principle, rhythm, presents the great challenge that the alchemist must manage. The law of the pendulum dictates that after a successful transmutation to a higher state, there will be an inevitable swing back toward the lower one. The untrained person is swept away by this backward swing, undoing all their hard work. The alchemist, however, is prepared. They use the art of neutralization, raising their consciousness to the higher self. The I, which is above the pendulum swing, they achieve a state of equanimity, allowing the lower moods to swing back and forth without identifying with them, thus protecting their transmutation. The sixth principle, cause and effect, is the alchemist's guarantee of success. They know that the law is absolute. By consciously choosing to apply their will and focus their mind, they are setting a new, high-vibration mental state into motion. This mental state is a powerful cause. The alchemist then rests in the knowledge that this cause must produce its corresponding effect in their character and their life. They are no longer a victim of external causes. They have become a master of internal causation. Finally, the seventh principle, gender, provides the active, creative method. The alchemist uses their masculine principle, their focused will, to formulate a clear idea of the state they wish to attain. They then impress this seed idea upon their feminine principle, their subconscious mind and imagination. They nurture this seed with faith and feeling, allowing it to gestate in the creative womb of the subconscious until it is born into their conscious reality as a new, stable personality trait. To understand this entire process, imagine a master sculptor. He stands before a large, shapeless block of marble. A novice sees only a heavy, ugly stone, but the master, the alchemist of form, sees the beautiful statue of an angel already existing within the stone. His work is not one of adding anything to the marble. His work is one of subtraction. He takes up his chisel, polarity, and his hammer will, and he begins to chip away all the parts of the marble that are not the angel. He removes the excess, the gross, the unneeded material, to reveal the perfect form that was always there, hidden within. So it is with us, the perfect, courageous, wise, and joyful self. The golden self already exists within the raw block of our current personality. The great work of mental alchemy is the art of chipping away all that is not that self, the fears, the limiting beliefs, the negative habits, the inherited traumas. It is a process of revealing our own innate perfection. So, how does one begin this practical work? The process can be summarized in a few key stages. First is observation. You must honestly identify the base metal within you that you wish to transmute. You cannot change a fear you are not aware of. This requires deep self-reflection. Second is concentration. You must focus your masculine will, choosing the positive pole you wish to attain. You decide, I will transmute this fear into courage. Third is generation. You use your feminine imagination to vividly visualize and feel what it is like to embody this new state. You create a detailed mental image of yourself acting with courage, feeling courageous, being courageous. You are planting the seed. Fourth is affirmation. You reinforce the new state by affirming it with words, stating, I am courageous and strong, and by acting as if it were already true, even in small ways. This creates a powerful feedback loop. Finally, there is vigilance. You must remain watchful for the backward swing of the pendulum of rhythm, ready to apply the art of neutralization, refusing to be pulled back into the old state of fear. This is the path of the mental alchemist. It is not an easy path, nor a short one. It is the work of a lifetime, but it is the noblest work a human being can undertake. It is the path of conscious evolution, of taking the reins of your own life and deliberately shaping yourself into the person you wish to be. We now have the art, the tools, and the process, but any great artist must know their primary instrument with intimate familiarity. The alchemist's instrument, the laboratory and the substance all in one, is the mind itself. To be a truly effective alchemist, we must first make a crucial distinction within our own consciousness. We must learn to differentiate the alchemist from the substance being transformed. This requires a deeper understanding of the self, separating the true, eternal I from the changeable, mortal me. We have now arrived at the heart of the alchemical workshop. We have studied the 7 laws that govern its operation, and we have been introduced to the great work of mental transmutation, the art of changing our own mental states from lead to gold. But before any artist can work effectively, they must understand their tools and their medium with intimate familiarity. In the laboratory of the mind, a crucial question must be answered. Who exactly is the alchemist? And what is the metal being transformed? The failure to make this distinction is the source of almost all human suffering and the primary obstacle to self-mastery. The key to unlocking the art of alchemy lies in understanding the profound difference between the I and the me. Let us first examine the me. The me is the self we are most familiar with, the personality we present to the world. It is a vast and complex bundle of contents. It is your name, your body, your history. It is your collection of memories, your likes and dislikes, your habits both good and bad. It is the intricate web of your beliefs, your opinions, your prejudices, and your ambitions. The me is the home of your emotions, your moods, and your feelings, which change like the weather from one day to the next. The me is plural and contradictory. There is a me that is a parent, a me that is a child, a me that is an employee, and a me that is a friend. These different me's can often have conflicting desires and goals. This entire collection, this shifting, conditioned, and mortal bundle of thoughts and sensations is the me. In the alchemical process, the me is the base metal. It is the substance to be worked upon, the lead to be transmuted, the raw clay upon the potter's wheel. It is the object of our awareness. Herein lies the great error of the unenlightened human condition. The vast majority of people live their entire lives in a state of absolute and unquestioning identification with the me. They believe that this bundle of changing thoughts and feelings is who they are. When a thought of anger flashes through their mind, their immediate inner statement is, "I am angry." When a wave of sadness washes over them, their reality becomes, "I am sad." When their body experiences pain, they believe, "I am in pain." They have completely fused the subject with the object, the observer with the observed. This identification is the root of bondage. If you believe you are your anger, then you have no power over it. You are simply its vessel. If you believe you are your depression, then you are trapped within its gray walls with no hope of escape. If you believe you are your temporary, conditioned personality, then you are at the mercy of every external circumstance. Every stray comment, every hormonal shift, every fleeting mood that drifts through the landscape of your mind. You are the metal, not the alchemist. And you are being constantly hammered and reshaped by forces you do not control. The Great Awakening, the first true step on the path of mastery, is the discovery of the I. I ask you now to perform a simple act of introspection. As you listen to these words, you are aware of thoughts arising in your mind. But ask yourself, who is it that is aware of these thoughts? When you feel an emotion, who is the one that knows the emotion is there? If you can observe your anger, you cannot fundamentally be the anger. The observer is, by necessity, distinct from the thing being observed. This silent, background witness, this center of pure, unchanging awareness, this part of you that has been present and aware through every experience of your life. From childhood to this very moment, that is the I. The I is the true self, unlike the plural and ever-changing me. The I is singular and constant. The me you were at age 5 is vastly different from the me you are today. But the I, the fundamental consciousness that was aware of that 5-year-old's world, is the very same consciousness that is aware of your world now. The I is the seat of your will. It is the eternal subject, the knower, the alchemist. The Hermetic teachings tell us that this I is a divine spark, a fragment of the mind of the All, loaned to us so that we may have an individual existence. It is the immortal, unconditioned consciousness that lies behind the mortal, conditioned personality. To clarify this crucial distinction, let us use the metaphor of a driver and a car. The me is the car. The car is the vehicle we use to navigate the physical world. It has a specific make and model, our body and genetics. It has a history, with dents and scratches from past journeys, our memories and traumas. It can be fast or slow, clean or dirty, reliable or prone to breaking down. The car is essential for the journey, but it is not who we are. The I is the driver. The driver is the consciousness that inhabits and directs the car. The driver is not the car. A scratch on the car's paint does not wound the driver. If the engine sputters, the driver is not sick. The driver's well-being is independent of the car's condition, even though a malfunctioning car certainly makes for a difficult and unpleasant drive. The great error is that most people believe they are the car. They identify so completely with the vehicle that every mechanical problem feels like a personal failing. Every bit of rust feels like a personal decay. The moment of spiritual awakening is the moment the driver wakes up inside the vehicle and realizes, for the first time, wait a minute, I am not this car. I am the one who is driving it. This realization, this act of disidentification, is the source of all true power and freedom. The moment the driver realizes they are not the car, they gain power over the car. They can now decide to get the car fixed, to give it a wash, to learn how to drive it more skillfully. They can choose its destination. As long as you believe you are your personality, you are its slave. The moment you realize you are the I who has a personality, you become its master. This changes everything, right down to the language you use with yourself. Instead of saying, "I am afraid," the awakened individual learns to observe and state, "The I is aware of a feeling of fear arising in the me." This is not just a semantic game. It is a profound shift in consciousness. It creates a space between the unchanging awareness and the changing emotion. In that space, freedom is born. In that space, the alchemist has room to work. You can now look at the fear objectively. Where did it come from? What are its properties? Is it useful? And most importantly, you can now apply the principles to it. You can decide to transmute that fear into courage. You can work on your personality because you are no longer hopelessly entangled in it. This is the foundation of mental alchemy. The I is the alchemist. The me is the metal. The 7 principles are the tools. The work is to take the raw, conditioned materials of the personality, the fears, the habits, the limiting beliefs, and to transmute them into the golden consciousness of the perfected self. It is to take the car that you have been given, with all its quirks and history, and to become such a masterful driver, such a loving mechanic, that you can transform it into a vehicle capable of taking you anywhere you wish to go. This is the first and most critical step. You must claim your seat as the driver. The alchemist, the I. With the alchemist now aware of their true identity and their power over the vehicle of the personality, we are equipped to handle the complexities of the journey. The world we navigate, both inner and outer, is a world of duality, filled with contradictions and seemingly irreconcilable opposites. How does the awakened I move through this polarized world without becoming trapped in endless conflict or rigid, black and white thinking? How does the master driver navigate a road with both a left and a right side, a day and a night, a smooth path and a bumpy one, with grace and balance? To answer this, we must take a deeper look into the nature of paradox itself. Having claimed our rightful place as the alchemist, the conscious I standing separate from the shifting states of the me, we begin to see the world through new eyes. The simplistic, dualistic landscape of our former consciousness, a world of stark blacks and whites, of rigid rights and wrongs, of us versus them, begins to dissolve. In its place, a far more intricate, nuanced, and profound reality reveals itself. A reality woven from the threads of paradox, the ability to perceive, understand, and ultimately transcend duality is a hallmark of the masterful mind. It is the skill that allows the alchemist to work with the complex energies of life without becoming entangled in them, transforming the friction of opposition into the fuel for wisdom. Our ordinary mind is a creature of duality. It is a sorting mechanism, designed to create order by placing things into distinct categories, good or bad, success or failure, spiritual or material, friend or foe. While this faculty is useful for basic survival, when it becomes our only way of seeing the world, it creates a mental prison. The Hermetic philosophy, grounded in the principles of polarity and vibration, shatters this prison. It teaches that these opposites are illusions. The world is not a binary system. It is an infinite spectrum of vibration. An action is not absolutely evil. It is of a low, discordant, and destructive vibration. An experience is not a failure. It is an outcome on the continuum of life that provides feedback and learning. This perspective does not erase morality, it elevates it. The goal is no longer to vanquish a mythological external evil, but to consciously and consistently choose to cultivate higher vibrations within oneself and the world, vibrations of love, harmony, wisdom, and compassion over the lower vibrations of fear, discord, ignorance, and selfishness. The key to navigating this new, non-dual landscape is to move from either, or thinking, to both. And thinking, the unenlightened mind is constantly forced to choose. I can either accept my life as it is, or I can strive to change it. I must either be a spiritual person, or I can be successful in the material world. I must be either strong or vulnerable. The wise alchemist recognizes these as false choices, as two poles of a single truth. The true path to mastery lies in embracing both sides of the paradox simultaneously. Consider the profound paradox of acceptance and change. Many spiritual paths emphasize the supreme importance of acceptance, of being at peace with what is. Many self-development paths emphasize the power of will, of creating the life you desire. They seem utterly contradictory. Yet, the master holds both. They practice the art of fully, radically accepting their present reality in this very moment. They do not resist it, complain about it, or waste energy, wishing it were different. This is the application of the receptive feminine principle, simultaneously, and without any contradiction. They hold a clear, powerful, and unwavering intention for what they are creating next. They apply their masculine will to plant the seeds of a new reality. They are, at once, completely at peace with what is, and a powerful, active cause for what is to come. They have reconciled being and becoming. This is the both and mind at work. It is the ability to be both humble, recognizing your tiny place in the cosmos, and divinely powerful, recognizing the spark of the all within you. It is the ability to be both detached from the final outcome, practicing the law of neutralization, while being intensely focused and impeccable in your actions, practicing the law of cause and effect. To illustrate this way of seeing, let us turn to the ancient Indian fable of the blind men and the elephant. A group of men who had been blind from birth were brought to a palace to experience an elephant for the first time. One man reached out and touched the elephant's broad, sturdy leg. "Ah," Ed declared, "I see now. An elephant is like a great, rough pillar." Another man happened to grasp the swinging tail. "You are mistaken," he said. "An elephant is very much like a rope." A third man touched the curving tusk. "How can you be so wrong? An elephant is smooth, hard, and sharp, like a spear." A fourth, who felt the giant, flapping ear, proclaimed, "Fools, an elephant is like a large, leathery fan." And so they fell to arguing, each one absolutely convinced of his own direct experience, and each one believing the others to be either liars or madmen. Each blind man was partially right, and all of them were completely wrong. Their error was not in their experience, but in their conclusion. They mistook their limited, partial truth for the whole truth. Then, the wise king, who was not blind, came upon them. He did not tell them they were wrong. He listened patiently to each one. To the first, he said, "Yes, the part you touched is indeed like a pillar." To the second, "Yes, the part you touched is like a rope." He was able to see the whole elephant, the higher, unifying reality in which all the seemingly contradictory, partial truths found their proper place. The leg, the tail, the tusk, and the ear were not contradictions. They were simply different aspects of one magnificent creature. The alchemist strives to cultivate the consciousness of the wise king, not the blind men. When faced with opposing viewpoints, religious doctrine, or political ideologies, the alchemist resists the urge to declare one right and all others wrong. Instead, they ask, what is the whole elephant? What is the larger, higher truth that could contain and reconcile these apparent contradictions? Living from this perspective has a profound effect on our character, It dissolves the foundation of harsh judgment. If every perspective is true from its own point of view, if every truth is but a half-truth, it becomes impossible to maintain the arrogant certainty that fuels condemnation. This does not mean a passive acceptance of all behaviors. We can still recognize that some perspectives are of a much lower vibration, based on less information and more fear than others. We can still act to prevent harm, but our actions come from a place of wisdom and compassion, not from a place of self-righteous zealotry. We can disagree with another person's conclusions while still understanding the limited part of the elephant they are touching that leads them to that conclusion. This fosters a deep intellectual and spiritual empathy. It is the pathway out of the endless human cycles of conflict and us versus them tribalism. To transcend duality is to hold the tensions of life with grace. It is to be comfortable with ambiguity, to find peace in not knowing, and to see the universe not as a problem to be solved, but as a magnificent paradox to be experienced. It is the ultimate liberation of the mind from the prison of its own rigid categories. With this balanced and nuanced perspective, the awakened eye is now prepared to contemplate the greatest paradox of all, the very summit of Hermetic metaphysics. We have learned to reconcile the small paradoxes of our daily lives. Now we must turn our gaze to the relationship between the finite universe and the infinite all. If the all is, by definition, everything that is, how can a universe, which seems by our experience to be separate from it, even exist? How can the one also be the many? How can the absolute create the relative? This question takes us beyond the workshop of the mind and into the very throne room of God. Having learned to stand as the alchemist, the conscious eye, and to navigate the world of paradox by embracing both and thinking, we are now prepared to approach the ultimate paradox, the great metaphysical riddle that lies at the summit of all philosophy and religion. We must now turn our attention to the relationship between the all and the universe, between the one and the many, between the absolute and the relative. This is the question that has echoed through the ages. If the all is, by its very definition, everything that is, infinite, eternal, and absolute, then where does the universe finite, changing, and relative reside? How can anything exist that is seemingly not the all? How can the unmoving source give birth to a world of constant motion? To solve this, we must return to the first principle, mentalism, and explore its deepest implications. As we established, the all could not have created the universe from some external substance, for there is nothing external to the all, nor could it have created the universe by dividing or sacrificing a part of itself. For this would mean the all could change, which contradicts its absolute nature. The Hermetic teachings resolve this cosmic dilemma with a truth that is as simple as it is mind-altering. The universe is a mental creation, existing within the mind of the all. It is not an external object built by a divine artisan. It is an internal process, a divine imagination, a cosmic meditation. The universe is not separate from God, it is in God. As the ancient mystics declared, in the all we live, and move, and have our being. This is not a poetic platitude. It is, from the Hermetic perspective, a literal statement of fact. This understanding immediately solves the paradox of creation. The all remains eternally undivided, unchanged, and absolute, while simultaneously being the source and substance of a vast, changing, and relative universe. The key is to understand that a mental creation does not alter its creator. To make this clear, let us employ a powerful analogy, the relationship between a great author and the characters in their novel. Imagine a masterful storyteller, a Shakespeare or a Tolstoy, within their singular, unified consciousness. They conceive of a whole world, teeming with life. They create heroes and villains, saints and sinners, lovers and fools. Each of these characters a tormented Hamlet, a malicious Iago, a passionate Anna Karenina is born from and exists entirely within the mind of the author. In a very real sense, the author is all of their characters. The nobility of one and the treachery of another are both expressions of the author's boundless imaginative potential. Yet, the author's own essential being remains unchanged. Shakespeare did not become less himself by creating Iago. His consciousness was not diminished. The entire drama unfolds within the safe container of his mind. Now, consider the perspective of the characters. To them, their world is completely real. Their joys are ecstatic, and their sufferings are agonizing. They fall in love. They fight wars. They betray each other. They seek redemption. They operate according to the laws of the world the author has created for them. Hamlet does not know that he is a character in a play. His existential dread is, for him, the ultimate reality. His story is not an illusion to him, it is his life. He has his own perspective, his own limitations, and his own destiny within the narrative. This is our relationship with the all. We are characters in the cosmic novel. Our lives, our struggles, our triumphs, our pains, they are intensely real on our plane of existence. We are bound by the laws of this universe, just as a character is bound by the rules of their story. But from the ultimate, higher perspective of the all, the divine author, the entire cosmic drama is a perfect, internally consistent, and meaningful mental creation. From our limited, character-level viewpoint, we experience life as a linear progression of events. From the viewpoint of the author, the beginning, middle, and end are all part of one timeless, complete work of art. This analogy provides a profound Hermetic insight into the age-old problem of evil and suffering. From our vantage point within the story, we experience injustice, pain, discord, and what we call evil. These things are undeniably real to us, just as Hamlet's suffering was real to him. And yet, from the author's perspective, these elements of darkness are often necessary components of a great story. A narrative with no conflict, no challenge, no antagonist, would be a flat, uninteresting, and meaningless tale. It is the struggle that forges the hero. It is the presence of darkness that gives the light its meaning and value. It is the overcoming of obstacles that drives the plot forward and creates the possibility for growth and redemption. The Hermetic philosophy does not deny the reality of suffering on our plane. It simply reframes it, suggesting that from an ultimate perspective we cannot possibly comprehend. Even the darkest threads are woven into a perfect and beautiful tapestry. Furthermore, the concept of a mental universe explains why our reality is a cosmos, not a chaos. It explains why the universe is governed by such precise, orderly, and immutable laws, the very principles we have been studying. If the universe were some random, external accident, there would be no reason for it to be so exquisitely ordered. But if it is a coherent and sustained thought in the mind of the all, then its laws are simply the rules of thought of that supreme, rational mind. The law of gravity is not a coincidence, it is an expression of the consistency of the divine intellect. The mathematical constants that underpin physics are expressions of a universal, logical harmony. The principles of polarity, rhythm, and causality are not arbitrary rules imposed upon the universe. They are the inherent grammar of the divine thought itself. The universe is reliable and predictable because it is the product of a stable and unchanging mind. Thus, the great duality of the one and the many is reconciled. The all remains the absolute, unchanging one. The universe is the relative, ever-changing many, and the many exists entirely within the mind of the one. There is no contradiction. There is no separation. There is only the divine thinker and the divine thought. And we are integral parts of that thought, imbued with our own measure of consciousness, our own perspective, and our own creative power within the grand narrative. We are not outside of God. Looking in, we are inside of God, looking out from a unique vantage point. With this grand, metaphysical vision in place, we have now mapped the cosmos from its ultimate source down to our own existence within it. We have the God's eye view of the architecture of reality. We see the absolute mind of the all as the infinite container, and the relative universe as its perfect internal mental content. It is a staggering and awe-inspiring concept. Now, with this highest of perspectives established, it is time for us, as students of this reality, to zoom our focus back in. We understand the relationship between the building and its architect. It is now time to study the floor plan of the building itself. How is this vast mental universe structured internally? What are the different realms, the different levels of vibration, the different floors of this cosmic edifice through which consciousness can travel? This inquiry leads us directly to a more detailed examination of the great map of reality, the planes of correspondence. Having ascended to the highest metaphysical peaks to glimpse the relationship between the all and its mental universe, we now descend, equipped with a new perspective, to the essential task of mapping the inner cosmos. If the universe is a grand, multifaceted mental creation, then what is its structure? How are its different realms organized? The Hermetic teachings provide a clear and elegant model for understanding this. A divine cartography known as the planes of correspondence. This is the master map of reality, a guide to the various levels of being that allows the alchemists to navigate their own consciousness and the world with clarity and purpose. It is vital to understand at the outset that the term plane is a convenience, a metaphor. It does not imply a place, like a layer of earth or a floor in a building, stacked one on top of the other. The planes are not separated by distance, but by vibration. They are different dimensions or states of being which occupy the same space, interpenetrating each other perfectly. Think of the air in the room around you. It is simultaneously filled with light waves, radio waves, Wi-Fi signals, and the magnetic field of the Earth. These are all different phenomena on different frequencies, all interpenetrating the same physical space. So it is with the great planes of reality. They are all here, right now. We simply perceive the one to which our consciousness is currently attuned. The Hermetic philosophers traditionally divide the universal spectrum of vibration into three great planes: the great physical plane, the great mental plane, and the great spiritual plane. Let us begin with the most familiar, the great physical plane. This is the realm of existence that we perceive with our five senses. It is the world of what we call matter, energy, and force. It is the plane upon which we live our physical lives. But even this plane is far more complex than it appears. The Hermeticists subdivide it into many smaller planes. At the very bottom are the vibrations of gross matter solids, liquids, and gases. This is the world of chemistry and classical physics. Above this, the vibrations become finer, and we enter the realm of what science calls energy. This includes the phenomena of heat, light, magnetism, and electricity. And above this are even finer, more subtle forms of energy that our science is only just beginning to postulate. The forces that bind atoms and galaxies, what some call etheric energy. The physical plane is primarily the plane of effects, the final stage where the causes initiated on higher planes come into their ultimate expression. Ascending in the scale of vibration, we leave the realm of non-living forms and enter the great mental plane. The Kabbalion makes a profound association here, stating that mind is the essence of life. This plane, therefore, is the realm of all living, thinking things, from the most basic to the most complex. Like the physical plane, it has its lower and upper regions. At the very bottom, we find the minds of the mineral and plant kingdoms, not a mind in the human sense, but a kind of dim, unconscious life force, an instinctual capacity for growth and response. Above this, we find the mental plane of the animal kingdom, a world of instinct, désir, and rudimentary feeling, but without the capacity for self-conscious reason. And then, we arrive at the plane of the human mind, which is itself a spectrum. From the consciousness of the most primitive human to that of the most enlightened sage, this is the realm of our thoughts, our emotions, our beliefs, our imagination, and our intellect. For humanity, this great mental plane is the great causal realm. It is the alchemist's primary workshop. It is here, in the world of our minds, that we forge the causes that will inevitably manifest as the effects and circumstances of our physical lives. Rising higher still, beyond the grasp of ordinary human intellect, we enter the luminous and awe-inspiring domain of the great spiritual plane. This is the plane of beings so far advanced beyond our current state of evolution that we can only speak of them in symbolic terms. We may call them angels, archangels, divine intelligences, or gods. They are as far above the average human on the scale of being as the average human is above a simple earthworm. Their consciousness is vast, their power immense, and their medium of expression is pure spirit. This is the realm of the highest intuition, the home of the great cosmic archetypes, and the plane upon which our own true self, the immortal I, has its ultimate reality. We can only know this plane by applying the principle of correspondence, understanding that its divine laws and patterns are the above that sets the template for our own below. It is the great causal plane that governs the mental plane, just as the mental plane governs the physical. The most crucial concept to grasp is that these planes are not separate. They interpenetrate. The mental plane is not somewhere else, it is here, permeating your physical body. Your thoughts and feelings are not in a different location. They are happening on a different vibrational level within your own being. Right now, the spiritual plane is not in some distant heaven. It is also here, the very spark of consciousness that animates your mind and body. The universe is a unified whole. To better understand the relationship and hierarchy of these interpenetrating planes, let us use the analogy of a great corporate skyscraper. Imagine the person working in the basement boiler room. Their world is one of pipes, concrete, and machinery. Their perspective is limited to the foundational, physical operations of the building. This represents the lowest level of the physical plane. Now, imagine the people on the busy ground floor lobby. They see the comings and goings, the immediate interactions, the street-level view of life. This is the ordinary human perspective on the physical plane, aware of immediate effects but not their deeper causes. Now, let us ascend to the middle floors, to the offices and design studios. Here, the architects, marketers, and strategists work. They are not dealing with the physical pipes or the immediate lobby traffic. They are working with ideas, plans, and concepts. They are looking at blueprints and sales projections, shaping the future of the company. This is the mental plane. They have a broader perspective than those on the ground floor. They understand the why behind the lobby's activity. Finally, let us take the express elevator to the penthouse boardroom on the top floor. Here, the CEO and the board of directors reside. They are not concerned with the details of the blueprints or the daily traffic. They are looking out of panoramic windows, seeing the entire city, observing the competition, and making high-level, long-term decisions about the ultimate purpose and direction of the entire corporation. This is the spiritual plane. This analogy perfectly illustrates the Hermetic law. The higher governs the lower. A decision made in the penthouse boardroom, the spiritual plane is the ultimate cause. This decision is then translated into a series of plans and strategies on the office floors, the mental plane. These mental plans, in turn, direct the actions on the ground floor, and in the basement the physical plane, resulting in a new product, a new building, or a new marketing campaign. The flow of causation is always from top to bottom. This is why the mental alchemist works on the mental plane, To try and create change by only working with the physical world is like being a janitor in the lobby trying to change the entire corporation's direction. It is the least effective point of leverage. The true alchemist goes to the middle floors, to the plane of mind, and creates new blueprints. By changing the cause on the mental level, the effect on the physical level must follow. According to the law, we now possess a comprehensive map of the inner cosmos. We see reality as a continuum of vibration, divided into the great planes of the physical, the mental, and the spiritual, all interpenetrating and governed by the law of top-down causation. We understand that our true leverage point for creating change lies within our own minds. With this ancient and detailed map of reality now fully laid out before us, we are perfectly equipped to see how it provides the deep, powerful, and often missing foundation for one of the most popular spiritual ideas of our time. It is time to connect this ancient wisdom directly to the modern and often misunderstood practice of the law of attraction. Having now constructed a detailed map of the mental universe and its various planes, we are in a perfect position to bridge this ancient wisdom to the modern world. In recent decades, a powerful spiritual concept has entered the mainstream consciousness, captivating millions with its promise of empowerment and creation. The law of attraction. Through books, films, and seminars, the idea that our thoughts create our reality has become one of the most widespread spiritual philosophies of our time. Many people have reported miraculous results using its principles, manifesting health, wealth, and happiness. Yet, for every success story, there are countless others who have been left frustrated, confused, and disappointed, feeling that the secret has somehow failed to work for them. The reason for this inconsistency is not that the law of attraction is false, but that it is incomplete. It is a single, beautiful flower that has been plucked from the deep, ancient, and nourishing soil from which it grew. The roots of that flower, the complete system that gives it life and context, is the timeless philosophy of Hermeticism. The modern law of attraction is not a new invention. It is a direct, though highly simplified, consequence of the Hermetic principles we have already explored. The core idea that like attracts like and that your thoughts can shape your destiny is a natural outcome of two fundamental laws. The first principle, mentalism, establishes the very field upon which this law can operate. It teaches that the universe is mind, and therefore, our thoughts have genuine creative substance. Without this foundational understanding, the idea that thoughts can influence a material world makes no sense. The third principle, vibration, provides the precise mechanism. It teaches that everything, including our thoughts, is a vibration. By holding a certain thought, you are emitting a specific frequency. According to the law of resonance, you will then attract into your life people, circumstances, and objects that are vibrating on a corresponding frequency. So, the law of attraction is not wrong. It is simply a slice of a much larger, more profound reality. Its failure to work consistently for so many people is due to its isolation from the other 5 principles, which are essential for its effective application. Let us examine why this simplified law of attraction so often fails, and how the Hermetic system provides the missing pieces. The first great stumbling block is the principle of polarity. Many people are taught to fear their own negative thoughts, believing that a single thought of lack will ruin their manifestation of abundance. This creates a state of internal conflict, where they are actively fighting their own minds. The principle of polarity, however, teaches the art of transmutation. The alchemist does not fight a negative thought. They understand it is simply the opposite pole of a positive thought. Instead of fearing their thoughts of poverty, they use the technique of polarization to consciously raise their vibration, focusing their will and attention on the opposite pole of abundance and wealth. They don't resist darkness, they introduce light. The second, and perhaps most significant, reason for failure is an ignorance of the principle of rhythm. A person will begin practicing affirmations and visualizations. They will feel wonderful, raise their vibration, and start to see positive changes in their life. The pendulum is swinging to the right. Then, inevitably, the law of rhythm asserts itself. The pendulum begins its compensatory swing to the left. Doubts creep in. Old fears resurface. And progress seems to stall or even reverse. Believing they have failed or that the law has stopped working, they fall into despair and give up. Not realizing this, backward swing is a natural and necessary part of the process. The Hermeticist, however, anticipates this rhythmic swing. They are not surprised or discouraged by it. They use the law of neutralization, raising their consciousness to the stable I and allowing the pendulum of the me to swing without being carried away by it. They understand that the tide must go out before it can come in again, and they hold their course with unwavering poise. Third, the simplified law of attraction often neglects the inescapable principle of cause and effect. The process is often presented as a passive, magical transaction with the cosmos. Ask, believe, receive. This can lead to a state of wishful thinking, where a person believes they can simply sit on their couch and visualize a check appearing in their mailbox. The principle of cause and effect is the law of action. It reminds us that we must become a cause. While the thought is the primary cause, our actions must correspond to that thought. You cannot attract physical fitness while your actions consist of eating junk food and avoiding exercise. You cannot attract a successful business while your actions are timid and unfocused. The Hermeticist knows that they must align their thoughts, feelings, and actions to create a powerful, coherent cause that will produce the desired effect. Finally, the popular version often misunderstands the principle of gender. Creation requires the balanced interplay of both the masculine will and the feminine imagination. Many people focus only on the masculine aspect. I want this, I claim this. They try to force their will upon the universe, but they neglect the feminine work of patiently impressing that idea onto the subconscious mind through sustained feeling and faith, allowing it to gestate. Others do the opposite, endlessly daydreaming and fantasizing the feminine principle, but without the focused, masculine will to give their dreams direction and bring them into reality. The alchemist knows that a successful creation requires the sacred marriage of both a clear-willed intention planted in the fertile, receptive womb of the subconscious. This leads to the most important reframing that Hermeticism offers. The universe does not give you what you want. It gives you who you are. The law of attraction is less about attracting things and more about becoming the person to whom those things naturally belong. The goal is not to use mental tricks to get a loving relationship. The goal is to use the great work of mental alchemy to transmute your own being into a more loving, secure, and harmonious person. The loving relationship then appears as a natural effect, a reflection of your new inner state. The goal is not to attract wealth. It is to transmute a consciousness of lack into a consciousness of abundance, to become a person who thinks, feels, and acts as a prosperous individual would. Wealth then flows to you as a corresponding reality. You use the laws not to decorate your life, but to rebuild it from the foundation of your own character. We can use the analogy of a radio. The follower of the simplified law of attraction is like a person standing before an old radio, demanding that it play their favorite song. They concentrate, they wish, they hope. If, by chance, the radio happens to already be tuned to the correct frequency, the song plays, and they declare it a success. But if it's on the wrong station, or there's static, they are left powerless and frustrated. The Hermeticist, in contrast, is like a master radio engineer. They don't just hope, they understand the entire system. They know about radio waves, vibration. They know they must turn the dial to a specific frequency to match the broadcast polarity and cause. They understand that the radio needs a power source and a complete circuit to function gender. They know that atmospheric conditions can create interference that must be weighted out or neutralized. Rhythm. Because they understand all the underlying laws, They can reliably tune into any station they choose. They are not practicing wishful thinking. They are engaged in the science of conscious harmonization. Hermeticism, therefore, does not invalidate the law of attraction. It completes it. It gives it roots, context, and the necessary framework for its successful and reliable application. It elevates it from a simple technique for getting things into a profound path of self-transformation. This ancient wisdom's insight into the layers and workings of the human mind is so precise that it doesn't just resonate with modern spiritual ideas. As we shall now see, it also finds stunning parallels in the rigorous, scientific discoveries of 20th century depth psychology. The timeless wisdom of the Hermetic tradition does not exist in a vacuum. We have seen how it provides the deep sea, structural roots for popular modern spiritual ideas like the law of attraction, lending them a coherence and reliability they often lack on their own. But the resonance of these ancient principles extends far beyond the realm of self-help and spirituality. In one of the most stunning intellectual convergences of the last century, we find that the Hermetic model of the mind was independently rediscovered, mapped, and validated by one of the greatest scientific pioneers of human consciousness, the Swiss psychologist Carl Gustav Jung. To study Jung's work alongside the Kybalion is to witness two great minds, separated by millennia, arriving at the same profound conclusions about the nature of the psyche and the path to wholeness. To appreciate this parallel, one must first understand Jung's revolutionary departure from his mentor, Sigmund Freud. For Freud, the unconscious mind was primarily a personal cellar, a dark basement where an individual stored their repressed memories, unacceptable désirs, and childhood traumas. It was a repository of personal history. Jung, however, through his extensive work with patients and his study of world mythology, found compelling evidence for a much deeper, more ancient layer of the psyche that was not personal at all. He called it the collective unconscious. This was his first great echo of Hermetic thought. The collective unconscious, in Jung's model, is a shared psychic inheritance, a reservoir of memories, instincts, and experiences common to all human beings, past and present. It is a universal mind field from which our individual egos emerge, like islands rising from a single, vast ocean. Now, compare this to the Hermetic principle of mentalism. The Kybalion teaches that the all is mind and that the universe is a mental creation. We all live and move and have our being within this singular, universal mind. Jung's psychological concept of a collective unconscious is a stunning scientific parallel to the Hermetic metaphysical concept of the mental universe. Both describe a shared, transpersonal field of consciousness that is the source and container of our individual minds. Residing within this collective unconscious, Jung discovered what he called the archetypes. These are universal, primordial patterns or images, innate psychic structures that are common to all humanity. The archetype of the hero, the wise old man or sage, the great mother, the trickster, the shadow. These are not figures we learn about, but potentials that exist deep within us, shaping our perceptions, driving our motivations, and appearing spontaneously in our myths, legends, and dreams across all cultures. This concept finds a direct correspondent in the Hermetic map of the planes. The Hermeticists taught that the higher mental and spiritual planes were populated by non-personal intelligences, forces, and ideas. Jung's archetypes are the psychological names for these powerful thought forms. The universal human experience of the wise old man archetype is the psychological manifestation of our psyche's connection to the great universal principle of wisdom that exists on a higher plane of being. The archetypes are the above that shapes the below of our personal psychology. The most significant and profound parallel, however, lies in the process of transformation itself. The ultimate goal of Jungian psychology is a lifelong process he termed individuation. This is the journey of becoming a psychologically individual, or an undivided whole person. It is the process of integrating the disparate parts of the psyche, most importantly, the conscious ego and the vast unconscious, into a new, more expansive, and unified center of personality, which Jung called the self. The journey of individuation involves confronting one's shadow, the repressed, dark aspects of the personality, integrating one's contrasexual side, the anima in a man, the animus in a woman, and ultimately, uniting all these pairs of opposites into a harmonious whole. This process is a perfect, modern, psychological description of the alchemical great work. The ancient Hermetic alchemists taught that the ultimate goal was the conjunctio, the sacred marriage of the opposites, symbolized by the union of Sol, the sun, the masculine, the conscious king and Luna, the moon, the feminine, the unconscious queen. The product of this union was the philosopher's stone or the rebis, the divine hermaphrodite, a symbol of the perfected, a whole, and integrated human being. Jung's process of individuation, with its focus on integrating the conscious and unconscious and balancing the masculine and feminine within the psyche, is the great work spoken in the language of 20th century psychology. The Jungian self is the alchemical gold. Both are symbols for the same ultimate prize, a unified, enlightened consciousness that has transcended inner conflict. This connection is not a mere coincidence or an interpretation forced upon Jung's work after the fact. It is a connection that Jung himself discovered and spent the latter half of his life exploring with feverish intensity. Frustrated with the limitations of the scientific language of his day, Jung turned to the obscure, symbolic texts of medieval alchemy. He amassed a huge library of these strange books and realized that the bizarre images of dragons, lions, kings, queens, and chemical weddings were not descriptions of primitive chemistry. They were a sophisticated, symbolic roadmap of the very same process of psychological transformation he was witnessing in his patient's dreams. The alchemists, Jung concluded, had been practicing a form of depth psychology for centuries, projecting their inner psychic processes onto the substances in their flasks and crucibles. The ultimate proof of this connection came from his clinical practice. In a famous case, Jung was treating a patient, a well-educated man who had absolutely no knowledge of alchemical literature. This man began to describe a series of powerful, vivid dreams filled with imagery that was unmistakably alchemical. He dreamt of things that Jung could only identify by referencing obscure 16th century treatises. This was a watershed moment. It demonstrated to Jung that these symbols of transformation were not just cultural artifacts passed down through secret societies. They were spontaneously and independently generated from the collective unconscious itself. It proved that the archetypal journey of the great work, the transmutation of the lead of the unrefined ego into the gold of the integrated self, is an innate potential, a natural process, encoded into the very structure of the human soul. The ancient alchemists had not invented a system. They had discovered and mapped a fundamental territory of the inner world. The work of Carl Jung, therefore, provides an astonishing, independent validation of the Hermetic model of the mind. It confirms the existence of a collective mental field. It identifies the archetypal forces that populate it, and it describes the process of inner transformation in terms that are almost identical to the alchemical great work. It shows that the ancient sages, through introspection and intuition, had gained a knowledge of the human psyche that was so profound. It would take another 2,000 years for our science to begin to catch up. This ancient wisdom, it turns out, is not just pre-spiritual fad. It is also pre-psychology. And as we are about to see, in one of the most mind-bending convergences of all, it may even be pre-physics. We have journeyed across vast intellectual landscapes, tracing the echoes of Hermetic wisdom through the corridors of modern spirituality and the clinical offices of depth psychology. We have seen how the ancient sages mapped the human mind with a precision that would only be rediscovered millennia later by pioneers like Carl Jung. Now, we arrive at the most astonishing and unlikely convergence of all. We must turn our attention from the soft science of the psyche to the hardest of all sciences, physics, for in the early decades of the 20th century, as scientists finally gained the ability to peer into the very heart of matter, the solid, predictable, clockwork universe of Isaac Newton began to dissolve. In its place emerged a bizarre, paradoxical, and spookily familiar reality, a reality that seemed to be whispering the 7 Hermetic principles through the language of mathematics. For centuries, the scientific worldview was dominated by classical materialism. The universe was seen as a grand machine, made of tiny, solid, indestructible particles of matter, like cosmic billiard balls, bouncing off each other in predictable ways within the fixed arena of space and time. It was a universe of separate, solid things, a dead universe governed by deterministic laws. Then came the quantum revolution. Physicists like Max Planck, Niels Bohr, and Werner Heisenberg descended into the subatomic realm and found that the foundations of this materialistic world were made not of solid rock, but of shifting sand, of pure energy, of paradox and mystery. The first Hermetic law they unknowingly rediscovered was the principle of vibration. The Kybalion declares, "Nothing rests, everything moves, everything vibrates." Heisenberg's famous uncertainty principle was a mathematical confirmation of this ancient axiom. In essence, the principle states that it is impossible to know both the exact position and the exact momentum of a quantum particle at the same time. The more precisely you measure its position, the more uncertain its momentum becomes, and vice versa. This discovery shattered the dream of a predictable, clockwork universe. It revealed that at its most fundamental level, reality is not static or fixed. It is a realm of inherent fuzziness, of constant, indeterminate motion. The very substance of the world is not a thing, but a vibration, a ceaseless, energetic dance. The next classical illusion to fall was the idea of separation. We experience the world as a collection of separate objects, but quantum mechanics revealed a deep and baffling interconnectedness. This phenomenon, known as quantum entanglement, was so strange that Albert Einstein famously called it spooky action at a distance. It is possible for 2 particles to become linked or entangled in such a way that they behave as a single system, no matter how far apart they are separated. If they are sent to opposite ends of the galaxy, the moment you measure a property of one particle, you instantly influence the corresponding property of its twin. Information seems to pass between them faster than the speed of light, defying our classical understanding of space. This spooky action is a powerful scientific whisper of the principle of correspondence. It suggests a hidden, unifying fabric beneath the surface of reality, a deeper level of existence where all things are fundamentally interconnected as one. It points toward a holistic universe. Just as the Hermeticists taught, these discoveries were profound, but they were nothing compared to the philosophical earthquake triggered by one specific experiment. Of an experiment so strange and consequential that it still haunts the dreams of physicists and philosophers today. It is called the double-slit experiment, and it brings us face to face with the most powerful Hermetic echo of all, the principle of mentalism. The experiment is simple in design. Scientists fire single particle, like electrons, one at a time toward a barrier with 2 vertical slits in it. On the other side is a detector screen that records where each particle lands. In the first version of the experiment, the scientists simply let the particles fly without trying to observe which slit they go through. When they do this, a strange pattern emerges on the screen. The particles land in a way that suggests they are behaving like waves, passing through both slits at once and then interfering with themselves, creating a distinctive pattern of light and dark bands. This is already bizarre. How can a single particle go through 2 places at once? But this is where it gets truly mind-bending. In the second version, the scientists decide to find out which slit the particle actually goes through. They place a detector, a sort of microscopic camera, at the slits to observe the particle's path. The moment they do this, the instant they introduce the act of conscious observation into the experiment, the particle's behavior changes completely. It stops acting like a wave. It behaves like a solid little billiard ball. Picks one slit to go through, and the wave-like interference pattern on the screen vanishes, replaced by two simple bands, just as you'd expect from tiny bullets. The very act of looking, of measuring, of consciousness itself being directed at the experiment, seems to force the particle to abandon its wave of infinite possibilities and collapse into a single, concrete reality. The implications of this observer effect are staggering. It suggests that the physical world, at its most fundamental level, is not an objective reality that exists independently of us. It seems to exist as an unfixed field of potential, a wave of probability, until a conscious observer interacts with it, at which point it solidifies into a specific, tangible event. The physicist John Archibald Wheeler called this a participatory universe, one in which consciousness is not a passive spectator, but an active participant in the creation of reality itself. This is the clearest scientific parallel to the first and most important Hermetic axiom: the universe is mental. At its base level, reality behaves not like a machine, but like a thought, a field of potential that becomes concrete only when it is observed by a mind. Now, we must be careful. It would be an overstatement to say that quantum physics proves Hermeticism. The scientific community itself is still deeply divided on how to interpret these bizarre findings. But the parallels are undeniable and truly astonishing. The hard, predictable, material universe is gone. In its place, our most advanced science has uncovered a universe that is dynamic, uncertain, interconnected, and strangely mind-like. The cosmos described by quantum mechanics, with its foundational vibrations, its holistic entanglement, and its participatory nature, looks far more like the universe described in the Kybalion than the one described by Isaac Newton. It is as if the ancient sages, through deep intuition and contemplation, grasped the fundamental nature of reality in a way that our science, with all its powerful instruments and complex equations, is only now beginning to rediscover. We have seen the echoes of this ancient wisdom in the spiritual yearnings of our time, in the psychological maps of the human soul, and now, in the very equations that describe the fabric of matter itself. The Hermetic system appears to be a master key of such profound universality that it unlocks doors in every field of human thought. Having journeyed from the highest metaphysics of the all down to the quantum dance at the heart of the atom, it is now time to bring this vast, cosmic wisdom home, to ground it in our own lives. The ultimate purpose of knowing these laws is not just to marvel at the universe, but to consciously transform our own experience of it. Therefore, we must now ask the most practical question of all. How do we take these 7 grand principles and integrate them into our daily routines, our mindsets, and our actions? The next step is to forge a practical path for living the Hermetic life in the modern world. We have journeyed to the furthest reaches of metaphysical thought and peered into the quantum heart of matter. We have seen the echoes of Hermetic wisdom in the halls of psychology and in the formulas of physics. Now, we must bring this vast, cosmic understanding home. The true value of a map is not in its beauty, but in its ability to guide your footsteps on the ground. The ultimate purpose of the 7 Hermetic principles is not for intellectual admiration, but for practical, daily application. The great work of mental alchemy is not an abstract concept. It is a way of life, forged moment by moment, in the crucible of your everyday experience. This is how we transform the lead of our ordinary life into the gold of a mastered one. The foundational practice, the one upon which all others are built, is the cultivation of the inner witness. This is the daily exercise of differentiating the I from the me. Several times a day, make it a ritual to simply pause. Close your eyes for a moment. Take a breath and observe the contents of your own consciousness, as if you were a scientist observing a specimen. What thoughts are currently passing through your mind? Are they anxious, peaceful, critical, or creative? Do not judge them or try to change them. Simply notice them. What emotions are present in your body? Is there a tightness in your chest from anxiety? A warmth in your heart from affection? A knot in your stomach from resentment? Again, just observe. By doing this, you are practicing the art of disidentification. You are reinforcing your position as the I, the silent, unchanging alchemist, and recognizing your thoughts and feelings as the me, the transient, changeable metals in your laboratory. This simple act, practiced consistently, is the source of all self-mastery. It creates the space necessary for all other alchemical work. Once you have established yourself as the witness, you can begin the active work of transmutation using the alchemical art of polarization. This is the practical application of the principle of polarity. When, through your observation, you become aware of a negative or undesirable mental state, a feeling of irritation, a mood of apathy, a thought of fear, your first step is to not resist it. Resistance is futile and only strengthens the negative state. Acknowledge its presence calmly. Then, identify its direct opposite on the pole. The opposite of irritation is patience. The opposite of apathy is enthusiasm. The opposite of fear is courage. Now, the transmutation begins. Deliberately withdraw your mental energy from the negative pole by focusing your entire will and attention on the positive one. Bring to mind, with as much sensory detail as you can, a time you felt courageous. Recall the feeling in your body, the thoughts you were thinking. If you cannot recall a memory, use your imagination to create one. Change your physical posture. Stand up straighter. Pull your shoulders back. Breathe more deeply, mirroring the physiology of the state you wish to embody. Recite a powerful affirmation, such as "I am filled with courage and strength." You are actively and consciously sliding your vibration up the pole. This is a skill. It will feel difficult at first, but with practice, you will become a master of your own inner weather. Next, you must change your entire mindset toward challenges. An ordinary person sees a difficulty, a financial loss, to a health issue, a conflict with a loved one as a misfortune, an injustice, or a stroke of bad luck. They see themselves as a victim. The Hermeticist reframes every challenge as a lesson and an opportunity to apply the principles. When a downturn occurs, the student of rhythm recognizes the natural ebb of the tide. They do not despair, for they know the flow must follow. They use the low period for rest and introspection. The student of cause and effect sees the challenge as a feedback mechanism from the universe. They do not blame the world. They look inward and ask, what cause, in my own pattern of thinking or acting, has contributed to this effect? This transforms a painful situation from a punishment into a powerful diagnostic tool for self-awareness and growth. Every problem becomes a final exam, testing your understanding of the laws. To aid in this process, it is immensely helpful to adopt the scribe's tool, the alchemical journal. This is not a diary for complaining or recounting mundane events. It is a logbook for the scientist of the self. Each evening, take a few minutes to record the key effects of your day, both positive and negative. A successful meeting, an argument, a feeling of joy, a moment of frustration. Then, practice tracing these effects back to their probable causes. What were your dominant thoughts leading up to that event? What actions did you take? What was your underlying emotional state? Over time, this practice will make the law of cause and effect brilliantly, undeniably clear. You will see the direct, tangible link between your inner world and your outer world, reinforcing your commitment to becoming a conscious cause in your own life. Finally, There is the practice that acts as a universal solvent for negativity and a master key to high vibrations, the daily ritual of gratitude. From a Hermetic perspective, gratitude is a powerful form of vibrational alchemy. The universe, according to the principles of vibration and correspondence, I must reflect back to you the nature of your own being. A state of complaint, of focusing on lack, is a low-frequency vibration that can only attract more circumstances to complain about. Gratitude is the conscious act of tuning your entire being to the frequency of abundance, goodness, and reception. It is the feeling of having the make it a non-negotiable part of your day. Every morning upon waking, or every evening before sleeping. List 3 to 5 specific things you are genuinely grateful for. The key is not to just say the words, but to generate the actual feeling of warmth and appreciation in your heart. Be grateful for your breath, for the comfort of your bed, for a kind word from a friend, for the food you ate. This practice, more than any other, will rapidly raise your default vibrational state, making you a magnet for more experiences that evoke the same feeling. The shift in perspective required for this path is perfectly captured in the story of 2 workers at a large construction site. A traveler, observing them, asks the first worker, who is wearily slapping mortar on bricks under the hot sun, "My good man, what is it that you are doing?" The worker sighs, wipes the sweat from his brow, and replies, "I'm laying bricks. It's a miserable job. My back aches. The sun is relentless, and the pay is poor." The traveler then moves to another man, doing the exact same physical task. He asks him, "And what are you doing?" The second man stops, a smile touching his lips. He looks up at the rising walls, at the grand arches taking shape against the sky, and his eyes shine with a sense of purpose. He says with reverence, "I am building a great cathedral." Both men were performing the same action, but one was living as an effect, trapped by the mundane details. The other was living as a cause, connected to a higher purpose. The Hermetic path is the choice to become the cathedral builder in every aspect of your life. Every task, no matter how small, can either be just laying bricks, or it can be a conscious act of building the great cathedral of a mastered and meaningful life. These daily practices, witnessing the mind, polarizing your emotions, reframing challenges, journaling, and expressing gratitude, are the practical steps of the great work. They are not chores, but sacred acts of conscious creation. When you practice them with diligence and sincerity, they cease to be mere techniques and begin to merge into a new, default way of being. This gradual, steady transmutation, this slow turning of lead into gold through daily, conscious effort, leads to the emergence of a new kind of individual, a person of poise, power, and profound peace. A person who lives in the world but is no longer controlled by it. This is the figure of the modern master. Through the diligent, daily application of the sacred principles and the practical arts of mental alchemy, a profound transformation begins to occur. The slow, patient work of transmuting the lead of the lower self into the gold of the higher self is not without its reward. The ultimate result of this great work is the emergence of a new kind of individual, a state of being we might call the modern master. This term does not imply a flawless superhuman or a guru demanding followers from a mountaintop. Rather, it describes an individual, while living an ordinary life in the modern world, has achieved an extraordinary degree of self-mastery, inner peace, and quiet power. They are the living embodiment of the Hermetic philosophy. The first thing one must understand about the modern master is that their power is entirely internal. In a world obsessed with external control, the control of wealth, of other people, of political systems, the master's great and only conquest has been the conquest of themselves. They have no need to dominate others, for they have achieved perfect dominion over their own mind. They do not seek to control the moods of those around them, for they have mastered their own. This inner victory makes them profoundly powerful. But it is a power that is silent, not loud. It is the unshakable poise of a mountain, which does not need to announce its strength. It is the quiet authority that radiates from a being who is in perfect alignment with universal law, who has nothing to prove and nothing to defend. This inner power manifests as a mastery over the inner world. The master is not a passionless automaton. They experience the full spectrum of human emotions, but they are no longer identified with them. They have, through long practice, established their consciousness firmly on the higher plane of the I. The silent witness, they are the driver who is fully aware of the car's condition but is not the car itself. When the pendulum of rhythm swings toward a low mood, they observe it with detached curiosity, knowing it is a temporary, impersonal cosmic tide. They do not get swept away into despair. When the pendulum swings toward elation, they enjoy the feeling without becoming attached to it, knowing that it too will find its balance. They have used the law of neutralization to build a sanctuary of equanimity within themselves. Therefore, they are not thrown into turmoil by bad news or inflated with ego by good news. Their peace is not contingent upon external circumstances. It is a quality of their own being, generated from within. To understand the mindset of the master, let us use the analogy of a master chess player. The novice player is a creature of reaction. They become emotionally invested in every piece. When their opponent makes an aggressive move, they feel a jolt of fear. When they lose a bishop, they become angry and discouraged. Their strategy is short-sighted, a series of panicked reactions to immediate threats. They see only a few squares around the piece that is currently under attack. Now, observe the Grandmaster. They sit in a state of calm, focused awareness. They see all 64 squares of the board at once. When their opponent makes a move, they do not react with emotion. They absorb it as a new piece of information in a complex, dynamic system. They understand the deep principles of the game, the rules of positioning, of controlling the center, of pawn structure. Their own moves are not hasty reactions. They are calm, deliberate, and strategic, often with consequences planned 10 or 20 moves ahead. The Grandmaster will gladly sacrifice a knight, a seeming loss, if it leads to an inescapable strategic advantage later in the game. They are playing a different game than the novice, a game of deep causality and holistic understanding. The modern master plays the great game of life in this very manner. They see the whole board, understanding the interconnectedness of all events through the principle of correspondence. They are not baffled by life's happenings because they understand the underlying rules, the 7 principles that govern the game. They do not react with emotional turmoil to life's challenges because they have mastered the principles of polarity and rhythm. Their actions are not born from fear or anger. They are born from a place of calm, willed intention. They are a conscious cause. They may willingly accept a short-term loss or difficulty, understanding its role in a larger, long-term plan for growth or creation. They are playing the long game of the soul because they have ceased to be reactive. The master's actions flow from a different source. They originate from within, from their own core values and a deep understanding of cosmic law. They act. They do not simply react. Seeing the web of causality that connects all things, they become incredibly mindful of the causes they set in motion. They understand that a harsh word or a selfish act is a discordant vibration sent out into the universe that must, by law, return to them. They know that a small act of kindness, a moment of genuine presence, or a thought of love is a harmonious cause that will create corresponding harmonious effects, not just for themselves, but for those around them. As a conscious cause, their natural impulse is to create order, value, and harmony in their own sphere of influence. Whether they are a teacher, a parent, an artist, or a business leader, they bring a quality of coherence and integrity to everything they do. They elevate their environment, not by preaching or demanding, but simply by their state of being. This leads to the state described by the ancient mystics as being in the world, but not of it. The modern master does not retreat to a monastery or a cave. They are fully engaged in life. They may have a career, a family, a mortgage, and a tax return. They walk the same streets and face the same traffic as everyone else. They are in the world, but internally, they are anchored in a different reality. Their happiness is not dependent on the praise or condemnation of others. Their sense of security is not tied to their bank account. Their inner peace is not disturbed by political chaos or social upheaval. They are not defined or controlled by the ever-changing values of the collective herd. Their center of gravity is not in the me of their personality or the world, but in the eternal I, their connection to the all. They are not of the world. This state of mastery is not a static destination, not a final diploma from the University of Life. One does not achieve mastery and then rest on their laurels. It is the result of a continuous, moment-to-moment commitment to living the principles, to practicing the alchemy, to choosing the higher pole. It is a dynamic state of being, a lifelong process of refinement and growth. The path of wisdom never truly ends. And so, as we prepare to conclude this exploration, we must consider the nature of this path as a perpetual, lifelong journey. We have now traveled the full circuit of the 7 Hermetic principles, from the foundational truth that the all is mind, to the creative power of gender. We have explored the inner workings of the cosmos and the practical arts of mental alchemy. We have drawn parallels to modern psychology and quantum physics. And we have sketched a portrait of the modern master. As we reach the end of this formal exploration, it would be easy to feel a sense of completion, as if a great body of knowledge has been conquered. But this is the final illusion we must dispel. The end of this audiobook is not an end, it is a commencement. You have not finished a course. You have just been handed the map and the key to the rest of your life. The true laboratory is not in these words, but in the minutes, hours, and days of your own experience. The Hermetic path is a perpetual quest. From this moment forward, your life transforms from a series of random events into a living classroom, a dynamic training ground for the application of the principles. Every interaction, every challenge, every triumph becomes a lesson. When you find yourself in a difficult negotiation at work, you will see it not just as a conflict, but as a real-time lesson in the principles of polarity and vibration. When you are making a crucial financial decision, you will see it as a practical exercise in the law of cause and effect, consciously planting the seeds for a future you desire. When you feel a creative spark for a new project, you will recognize the dance of the masculine and feminine principles within you and learn to nurture it with wisdom. A simple moment of quiet reflection during a busy day becomes a powerful practice in differentiating the I from the me. Life ceases to be something that happens to you and becomes something that happens for you for your growth, for your evolution, for your great work. On this path, you will discover one of the great paradoxes of wisdom. The more you learn, the more you will realize how little you truly know. The novice reads a single book and believes they have all the answers. The true student of wisdom, after a lifetime of study, is filled with a profound sense of humility before the infinite mystery of the universe. Each principle you believe you have mastered will reveal a deeper, more subtle layer of meaning as your own consciousness expands. Each question you answer will blossom into 10 new, more profound questions. This is not a sign of failure. It is the hallmark of a genuine and expanding awareness. To understand this, let us use the metaphor of climbing a great mountain range. From the valley below, a climber might see a particular peak and believe it to be the ultimate summit. With great effort, discipline, and courage, they make the ascent. They climb through forests, over rocky scree, and finally stand upon that first peak, filled with a sense of accomplishment. But from this new, higher vantage point, their perspective is transformed. They can now see, for the first time, that what they thought was the summit was merely a foothill. Behind it, stretching out to the horizon, lies a range of even higher, more magnificent, more challenging peaks, previously hidden from their view. Does this new perspective invalidate their achievement? On the contrary, it honors it. It was only by climbing the first peak that they gained the vision to see the rest of an even grander journey. So it is with the Hermetic path. Every level of mastery you attain is not an end, but a new beginning. It is a higher vantage point from which to perceive the next stage of your own infinite upward evolution. The true reward is not in arriving at some final static destination, but in the ever-expanding view, and in the strength and wisdom gained during the climb itself. The journey is the destination. As you walk this path, you will come to understand the deep truth of the Hermetic axiom. The lips of wisdom are closed, except to the ears of understanding. You will feel less and less need to preach, to debate, or to convince others of the truth of these principles. You will realize that this knowledge cannot be forced upon anyone. It can only be received when a person is truly ready, when they have developed the ears of understanding through their own life experience and sincere seeking. The most powerful way to share this wisdom, then, is not to talk about it, but to embody it. A person who lives with the poise, the peace, the non-reactivity, and the quiet creative power of a modern master is a more compelling testament to this philosophy than 1,000 lectures. Your own transformation becomes the teaching. Your life becomes the sermon. Therefore, I encourage you to treat this audiobook not as a story to be heard once and then put away, but as a lifelong companion and a reference manual. It is a set of tools to be returned to again and again. When you find yourself struggling with emotional turmoil, return to the chapters on polarity and rhythm. When you feel blocked creatively, revisit the principle of gender. When you feel like a victim of circumstance, immerse yourself once more in the law of cause and effect. The words will not change, but you will. As you evolve, you will hear these teachings with new ears, and they will reveal deeper layers of meaning that were previously inaccessible to you. This text is designed to grow with you on your perpetual quest. The path is now laid before you. The principles have been illuminated. The tools have been placed in your hands. The great work is yours to undertake. A moment-to-moment, day-by-day process of conscious creation and self-transmutation. It is the journey from being a pawn of circumstance to becoming a player in the game of life. From being the raw metal to becoming the alchemist. It is the noblest and most rewarding journey a human soul can embark upon. As our detailed exploration of the principles now concludes, it is time to take one last look back at the trail we have climbed, to gather these 7 threads into a single, powerful cord, and to crystallize the ultimate message that this ancient, timeless wisdom holds for our modern lives. We have traveled a long and winding path together, from the misty origins of the veiled sage, Hermes Trismegistus, through the very heart of reality itself. We have stood before the 7 pillars of wisdom, learning that the universe is mind, that its planes correspond in perfect harmony, that its essence is pure vibration, structured by polarity, and governed by the eternal pulse of rhythm. We have seen how the unbreakable law of cause and effect dictates its every motion, and how the creative principle of gender brings all things into being. These are not 7 separate truths, but 7 perspectives on one magnificent, unified truth that the universe is a living, orderly, and knowable cosmos. If there is one ultimate message to carry forth from this journey, it is this: the outer world is but a mirror, a reflection of your inner world. The ceaseless, desperate chase for happiness, for wealth, for peace, or for love in the world of effects is a futile game. For these things are not found there. They are not acquisitions to be gained. They are states of being to be embodied. True power does not lie in changing the world, it lies in changing the self. When you, through the great work of mental alchemy, transmute your own consciousness, when you raise your dominant vibration, when you master your inner states, the world of effects has no choice but to change its reflection to correspond with your new reality. This is not magic. It is the supreme law of the mental universe, in which you are a potent and conscious creator. The secrets are now yours. The map has been unrolled. The compass has been placed in your hand. And the tools have been laid at your feet. The feeling of being a helpless pawn, a victim of circumstance, is a state of mind you never have to inhabit again. You now understand the laws of the game. Every challenge is a lesson. Every moment is an opportunity. Every thought is a cause. The lips of wisdom have been opened to you. The work that remains is the great work of your own life. The choice to begin is yours, and yours alone. The universe is waiting.